For some reason, Stugotz has decided to get us started today with the Addams Family theme.
Yes, it helps. It works out the voice, Dano. It really does. Do-do-do-do.
What did you used to do on the drive up here in order to work out the voice when it would be haggard after a couple of days off and a ton of heaters?
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests courtesy of the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, whatever it was. I forget. Was it Shell Pennzoil
Yeah, I
Performance?
think you got, yes, I think you got it right. But I can also hear that you haven't been practicing. I can hear the it sounds like it needs some help. I thought of you this weekend because
thank you.
I saw a video that made me laugh. It really was a vibe. Alex Jones outside the courthouse, like just sucking a heater and yelling at the mainstream media that, you know, they're frauds and pirates. And somebody said to him, "You're on trial." And he took a drag and said back, "You're on trial." and the reporter said, "No, but you're actually on trial. Like your big company has had to file bankruptcy because you need bankruptcy protection from the $150 million that parents of Sandy Hook want."
But what is it exactly that made you think of me? Was it the heater, the courthouse, the fraud, all of it? Like, what was it?
It was all of it. First, it was the cigarette, first of all, because it was just odd the way he was sort of. You have to see it to see how he was smoking it. He wasn't just smoking it. He was taking drags before he went in and did the interviews, and he was looking to be combative as they told him he was on trial, and he says, "No, you're on trial." And it called them pirates as he's filing for bankruptcy and as the world falls down around him, but still defiant to the very end. All of it. Just quintessential Jones.
The verb ripping heaters has never applied more because he's just sort of aggressively taking a rip from a heater. I thought the most Stugotzian element of what you described was him having an instant response ready for "you're on trial," and him, without missing a beat, saying, "No, you're on trial." Stugotz is the king of having those instant responses. So
it's something I would say.
Did you go out to camp this weekend, Whittingham? Because a couple of different things happened. An offensive lineman crushed a couple of cans on his head.
What?
And Tyreek Hill did a backflip.
Well, and Tyreek Hill caught a 65-yard bomb from Tua,
Dolphin
sending
fans,
the entire internet into a frenzy.
Relax, Dolphin fans. I mean, Jesus, I'm the biggest Dolphin. Like, I'm excited about that, but it was just like overkill, like one bomb. Jesus.
Can I say this? The Dolphins won training camp. They won the opening of training camp. Tua looked good. Tyreek Hill was getting the crowd all fired up. Like, listen, the Dolphins have been boring for 2 decades. Dan and I talk about it all the time. And Tyreek Hill has given that franchise an injection of excitement. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if he's going to be any good. I have no idea if Tua's going to be any good. But for a moment, they were exciting, and they won the first day of training camp. And it's about time they won something.
Jessica, why are you looking at and laughing at Stugotz?
Well, I just, it's funny that they won training camp. I live in Miami now. I didn't see any of this. Like, none of this broke through. And I get served Dolphins shit on Twitter more than you could believe. And none of this broke through. I didn't see any of this.
Oh, but it's because you're not in the Dolphin echo chamber. We can all pick our own echo chambers, and you're in the Steelers echo chamber. I'm sure if something happened at Steelers camp, you would have heard about it, but we have a lot of shared followers.
You need to follow Omar Kelly, okay?
Well, I did see one thing that broke through to my side of Twitter from Omar Kelly, which was the selfie that your father was in, Chris.
Mike McDaniel just loves being a coach. He's enjoying it so far. He's working the media, trying to get on their good side. A group selfie, my dad in the back.
Wait until he's 0-4.
Yes, wait until the games are played. It's easy when you're winning training camp, when all you're beating is your own defense with 65-yard passes.
Playing into the self-involvement of sports reporters, A1 move for an NFL head coach.
Who wants a selfie?
Right, exactly. Who wants a selfie? 30 people are in his pocket now by merely putting them in a photograph that was tweeted by some people.
Did you see my dad in that photo? He might as well have been nude.
I saw a whole lot of preening people, thrilled, who I haven't seen in a long time.
The coach cares about me. He acknowledged my existence. Wow, that's so different than what Joe Philbin did to me.
And Brian Flores, who was not very nice. And also in the background, having aged some, but not as much as everyone else in the room, Kim Camper.
Oh boy, Kimbo,
looking like a hoss.
Yeah, I mean, what else? What else is he? He's not capable of looking like anything but a hoss.
He'll be a hoss when he's 90.
He's got to be 70 now.
No way.
You don't think so?
If he's
Kimbo?
70, he looks amazing. I'm guessing
really-
57, 58.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's 67.
Wow.
Wow.
He looks great.
amazing.
My dad and him are like the same age. Wow.
That prism, that is quite the contrast.
That is as ridiculous a thing as has been uttered. Tyreek Hill tells the NFL Network that he and the other receivers make up the fastest group of receivers of all time. On that play, Chris, what made Dolphin fans extra excited wasn't just that an accurate connection, our quarterback has arm strength, there's the deep pass, but everyone saw that Jalen Waddle was streaking wide open across the middle because they should be hard to cover. They've got skill position players that, if they're healthy, are dangerous. And the guy who clocked the fastest time at camp was Mostert. It wasn't either one of them. It wasn't Hill or Waddle. And what these people have brought is an enthusiasm that has not been seen around here, I don't think, this century.
To watch a training camp practice and a crowd of people, thousands of people, jump up and down because their quarterback completed a 65-yard pass, flawlessly floating it in the air into the stride of Tyreek Hill, the safety who's becoming a really good player, Javon Holland, by the way. He tweets out, "In Tua we trust." His fellow members of the secondary tweeting out the same thing. There's almost like a cult-like, I mean, the 2-1 thing has sort of been a joke, but there is now even further a cult-like following for this Dolphins team, and I'm kind of stunned, similar to how we ran into the buzzsaw of Jacksonville Twitter last week, that there even can still be this enthusiasm summoned for the Miami Dolphins, who have not won a playoff game since the year 2000.
Can I swing back to Chris Cody for just a second? Dolphin fans, relax, okay? I mean, seriously. He's wearing a red jersey. No one can touch him. No one puts pressure on him. Congratulations on being an NFL quarterback who was supposed to be one of the great quarterbacks ever to come out of college. Congratulations on being able to throw the ball 60 yards. I mean, everyone relax. Step back and relax.
I love the red jersey at training camp and practice. We should have something around here where like you get a red shirt and you just no one can make fun of you for that week. You're just like, you're safe.
I love that idea, like a golden helmet of life that you can pull out of the grid of death bucket, and then no one can make fun of you for like a week.
Like you see Aaron Rodgers and Bakhtiari just like live, and then just that red jersey. You can't pull that move off. You can't drive a golf cart around dancing, okay, if you're not Aaron Rodgers in that red jersey.
But I can be mad at Stugotz because it's been 25 years since there was anything worth celebrating around here, and he's got to be not first but second to relax. He got excited on the front end. He's like, they completed a pass, and immediately
he announced that they won training camp and then was immediately telling everyone to relax.
Before the end of the take, he takes the other side of this, so he's got everything covered, all of it flimsily. Just strong opinions everywhere, many of them contradicting each other. They won training camp, relax. Nobody was saying they won training camp until this show right here off of one pass.
I'm having a conversation with myself.
But Whitty was just kind of saying how excited like every year when Ryan Tannehill would connect with Mike Wallace for a 60-yard bomb, the Dolphins, those dumb fans were all like, "Whoa, we're back."
That's fine.
They knew, Chris.
This is not the U is back for 20 years. This is different. I'm not saying, I actually have said that I have expectations for this team and I expect them to be good. But in this conversation, I'm not even projecting that far. I'm simply not extinguishing what has replaced a profound apathy and indifference that is the worst thing that you can have on your team. Hate, anger, all of that stuff is better than what the Dolphins have had for a long time, because when you make them uninteresting, when you make them not exciting, there's no reason to watch. Seasons are over before they get started. This one has started early. We have not had a season start early around here with enthusiasm since they traded for Ricky. There has maybe Parcells somewhere in there.
I think that offseason where Nick Saban came in and they signed Dante Culpepper was a really exciting one. I know that, like, in retrospect, that seems preposterous, but the fan base was really excited about that. But yeah, it's been a really long time. Maybe, after they made the playoffs under Adam Gase, there was a moment where people were excited for how the team would kick on from there. But again, I was caught off guard. I know that those fans that show up for training camp practice, by the way, should be commended. I don't want to call them dumb or stupid. Like, showing up in 100-degree heat to go and watch the Miami Dolphins practice. I've been to training camp practice. It's a boring slog.
Tyreek Hill is doing backflips, grabbing a microphone, and Tyreek Hill is very clearly interested in being the lead voice and face for this team and propping up Tua with him. And he's doing the interviews. He's talking more than I've seen a Dolphin ever talk. He's in more places.
Promoting a podcast.
He is very interested in being a star in Miami who is part of this rejuvenation, and he was excited. Why should we temper that when it just got here and we've been waiting for it for 20 years? I'm not going to temper it. Yeah, you could fear it if you want. The season with expectations, these guys he's had it. Hill's had it. The rest of these guys, they don't know what a season of expectations is like, of real expectations. It buried and finished the Browns. This kind of coverage finished the Cleveland Browns. They could not withstand it with a quarterback who similarly was taken very high, similarly was doubted, similarly was injured, and similarly has been someone that has a very small window now after the lack of expectations are now replaced by giant expectations because the nation is paying attention to this team. And every week they're trending for something, and it's just not something that happened the last 20 years.
But, Dan, I would say Tyreek Hill, you're right. He's used to the expectations. I would also say different level, but Tua, Jalen Waddle playing at Alabama, they are used to expectations headed into a season.
But no, yes, expectations is one thing, but when you're always better than everybody, it's real easy to meet those expectations. And when you have all the best players, it's easier to meet those expectations. And no, Alabama, Nick Saban can be that at Alabama. You saw what Nick Saban was in the pros. It's minor league football. It is not the same thing. And whatever the expectations are on Tua this year, they're the largest of his career because his dreams go poof or they're realized this year. That's whatever it is he's been working for all his life. Well, it's not, I don't know if it was Heisman Trophy. I'm guessing it's to play professionally and to be one of the 12 guys in this league who matter at that position.
I'm just stunned. I really am surprised that we got here. And in some ways, listening to you talk about it that way does kind of make me almost want to sign up for the hurt again. I think a lot of what I do as a Dolphins fan is kind of brace against the hurt. I don't want to buy into expectations. I don't want to get excited.
What you do is interesting. It's a real protective coping mechanism after years of scars where you diminish the expectations to such a place that you can't be hurt by disappointment. You can't be hurt by it because you don't care as much. It's the worst thing a fan base can be. It's what the Dolphins have done to large swaths of their fan base. We don't want to be hurt anymore.
And I watched Tua in his first, so I had genuine expectations for Tua when he stepped on the field. I thought he was a better prospect than Herbert, a better prospect than Burrow. Herbert's been the best of the lot, and Burrow made the Super Bowl. So I was really in on Tua Tagovailoa. But at the same time, when he stepped onto the field, he did not look special. At no point to me has he looked special in the 2 seasons or the season and a half that he's gotten a chance to be the Dolphins quarterback. And I guess what I don't allow myself to do is twist myself into knots hoping that he's better than he's proven to be so far. And I don't go into the season thinking, oh, he's going to make a significant step forward because of a coach and a new receiving group and a new left tackle and a new running back. I just think he's going to be the guy that he's shown so far. I could be very wrong because there is a real possibility that Brian Flores, in sticking him with George Godsey and Chan Gailey and these terrible offensive coaches and with the worst offensive line in the history of Pro Football Focus and wide receivers that aren't game breakers, that maybe there was a limitation of Tua along the way. But until he proves it in regular season games, I'm not going to allow myself to get wrapped up in this enthusiasm.
Where he hasn't really shown is athletically, right? accuracy-wise, hasn't he been good? Like, it's statistically.
Yeah.
Very short distance. He's not proven to be a game-changing playmaker. I know he's got, like, there's this number that's thrown around that he's accurate on deep passes, but you don't watch him, like, does an opposing defense respect Tua going down the field? They don't. They don't respect the Dolphins offense.
They haven't had to. I suspect they will have to now. We may be wrong about this. I want to get through some of the analytics on this and how poorly we do some of this stuff as Stugotz steps up his analysis by saying we don't know what they're going to be, and he's right. It's one of the reasons they're so interesting. They are a curiosity and a mystery. And if you thought the hyperventilation last year and the perspectivelessness that arrived every week was weird and too much last year, wait until you see what happens with every single game this year. If they start 4-4, people are going to be just bouncing all over the place on what their analysis is because all of this has gotten fast-forwarded. When you make the noise this loud and the expectations this loud and you buy your way into the national game after being a regional team, they're going to, if they start 0-2, they're going to be on all the televisions. If they start 2-0, they're going to be on all the televisions. If you think this league is covered in a way that has a giant lack of perspective in it, wait till you see how the Dolphins are covered this year. And I can't wait for it, Chris, because it isn't about tempering my expectations. It's I want the team of my childhood to matter. They have not mattered. They have been a speed bump for this league and this division for old enough for an entire sports fan's life who's 20 to not have any idea that the Dolphins were ever any good, to have no access to it. You've got an entire generation of sports fans so hungry for something that feels like hope that this is the year that I will not extinguish it. I've been doing it successfully and correctly for so long, but I'm not doing it this year.
You mentioned the first 4 games. It got me to look at the schedule. Oh, no.
Brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, I have them up 1-3.
Patriots, Ravens, Bills, Bengals, first 4 games.
They had,
Then
like,
the Jets.
You talk about the swinging narratives. The opening game with the Patriots, I heard like 10 minutes of Mac Jones talk over the weekend. Totally new guy, committed to an offseason workout
Return
program.
of the Mac.
Doesn't have the flab anymore. But, I mean, there is a whole thing that Matt Patricia might be their play caller. However,
but Belichick has he's put in quotes, massive improvement, right? Or dramatic improvement. Belichick doesn't talk that way very often.
They can't have a worse start than last season, though, right? You can get through 1-7
we did lose to Urban Meyer last year, so
in London.
So many seasons here have ended before they've started.
Yeah.
And you can mention and be correct with Nick Saban and Dante Culpepper, and even to his first year, you can say that they've come in with some flickers of hope, but it has not been this. Like maybe Culpepper was something close to this. I might be willing to grant you that. I just can't remember this early in a season the promise of, is it going to be an exciting, creative offense? Is it going to be a fast offense? Are they going to actually score points because they can run the ball and throw it?
Chris, if you could just get past those first 4 games, though, at 2-2.
Talk to me.
2-2. Then you're talking about the Jets, the Vikings, the Steelers, the Lions, the Bears, the Browns, the Texans. Little bye week, little revenge game against the San Francisco 49ers for McDaniel. I mean, it is all out there for the Dolphins to go get. What?
Staring 5-4 right in the face.
You just told them to relax.
I did.
that early season schedule, though, woof.
Well,
Pats, Ravens, Bills, Bengals.
But let's talk about the difficulties in making the assessment, because last week we were laughing as a fantasy player that Tua is a chaos player. I don't play fantasy, so I don't know if that is a term that is thrown around very much with fantasy players, but I did think it was perfect to describe him as that, because you just don't know whether he's going to be 21st in the league at his position in fantasy points or whether or not coaching and wide receivers and development of Waddle and Gesicki as a third or fourth option as opposed to what he's been, which is the first place Tua looks because he doesn't have any time and he's got to throw it to a giant guy. When Jerry Jones says, Stugotz, I'm curious about this. You have said recently, and you've flip-flopped a lot on this, whether Jerry Jones is a good general manager or not. And he certainly had plenty of chances and tries to do it. He's meddlesome, and they haven't done a whole lot of winning in the quarter century since Jimmy Johnson, who goes into the Hall of Fame this week. was there. But Jerry Jones says that Zeke Elliott has to be the focal point of their running game. And I saw some stats from Warren Sharp, and basically what Ezekiel Elliott has done over the last couple of years is he gets what's blocked and nothing more. Per attempt over expectation is a stat that is now used that we did not use a while ago, where everyone's watching every play and telling you what you should be getting if you're an average running back. All Zeke Elliott is getting. Now, I'm looking, and I think my eyes are lying to me because I'm watching Pollard, and I'm like, he seems more efficient. He seems like he's getting more out there. But Jerry Jones, the general manager, is telling you against all the advanced stats, they've got to center it around Ezekiel Elliott. And so when Jerry Jones says that, he should know more than all of us, right? He's watching all the time, and I'm assuming that he knows more than all of us. When it comes to the Dolphins, Whitty, I don't believe that what they're putting out there publicly, that they would be doing it just to buoy their quarterback's confidence. There are too many voices seeing whatever it is they're seeing in practice, knowing what it is that they're watching more than us. It's another reason that the hope gets inflated for me, because it's not just Hill and Waddle. You hear that locker room. We are going to go out there this week, correct, Whittingham? We're going to go out there one day this week.
Yeah. We're hoping to get some stuff with the Dolphins where we can go out and check it out for a day, maybe talk to some people there within the organization. But yeah, I think there has been a charm offensive. I will say there was one last offseason as well, and it didn't lead to much.
Not like this, though. Not these words where they are inflating the expectations. And Tannenbaum, the ex-GM, is saying, don't do that. That's bad for Tua. And I'm saying, look, man, stack all the expectations on him. He can either handle or he can't. Like, the expectation, he's in I've got to save my career mode. And it's not particularly fair. I don't think there's been enough time to make accurate evaluations, but that league's not fair.
But, Dan, what do you want the Dolphin players to say? It's July. They're trying to encourage their quarterback. They're trying to make the quarterback feel good headed into the regular season. But you fall into this trap a lot, I feel like you do, that Tyreek Hill knows more than Dan LeBatard. No, he doesn't. Okay, Tyreek Hill is guessing like the rest of us. Eventually, you have to go out on a field, regular season, play games against those 4 teams to start the season. And Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they might think Tua's going to be good, but they have no idea until they get out there and he takes the red jersey off. They don't know. No one knows. No one.
What you're defending there is not me. You're defending your right to have no information and know as much as others.
Well, thank you for seeing right through me.
Because Tyreek Hill does know more than I do. He has vastly more information. He's catching the football, and it's not just him. It's what Whittingham said. Now, no, this stuff isn't being volunteered. They are being asked about it. And they do need to say something, but nobody's sitting it out, and the praise seems a little flowery given what we've seen so far from Tua ourselves.
Well, Javon Holland did volunteer it because he just tweeted it one day. He wasn't asked by the media. He just tweeted out, "In Tua we trust," and that is a level of enthusiasm.
This is so July what we're doing right now, even though it's August.
Even though it's August,
we're just like, these are such benign tweets. Like, obviously this guy's gonna "In Tua we trust."
No,
like,
but
this is
to Dan's point. Like, you can give boilerplate answers. You cannot tweet "In Tua we trust." You can just say, "Oh, we had a great offseason. We worked really hard, got after it in practice." Like any NFL player is trained to give boring ass answers, but for whatever reason, this team has decided we're going to go all in on our quarterback with little evidence.
I can't believe it's taken this long to really talk about the most important thing of all the Dolphins coverage this weekend. Everyone gets excited about that 65-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill, goes super viral on the internet. What should have gone viral is that person being banned from training camp. In that frame, you see a sign that very clearly says, no video, no cell phone video. This is propagandist, and the person responsible, I believe it's a journalism major from FIU, should be banned from Dolphins facilities forevermore.
What are you doing?
There's a
we can't be on this side of the argument.
What are you doing?
Lawbreaker.
We can't be on this side.
something I would do.
He's a co-op.
I mean, NFL coaches need to get over themselves. Apparently, they've given out rules of you can't report who's in what session and you can't tweet a video. Like, what are we doing?
Golf did this too a few months back when Roy and I went out to that golf tournament. I posted some videos out there doing content, trying to grow their sport. We got a bunch of emails. Hey, you can't be releasing. Like, we had to take videos down.
F1 is the same way. You can't take videos in the paddock. You can't take videos.
Hey, we're trying
of the
to promote
track.
your sport, okay? Golf.
Exactly.
You're trying to
Chris.
promote you.
You're welcome.
Well, congratulations. You just got two single high safeties week 1. Hope you're happy.
Chris, Cody, do you have any idea why those rules are in play as you think that you should be able to videotape whatever it is that
I
you
should
want?
be able to be looking at some guy putting and acting like I'm Jim Nance and being like, hello, friends. This guy's putting right now.
Okay,
Why can't I do that?
You have. Do you know why you
Especially
can't do
because it was
that?
on NBC, maybe.
That is correct. They pay lots of money for the exclusive rights so that no one else can have the video.
But I'm not going live with it. I was posting it after. It was like live to tape. It's ridiculous. It's a
But
ridiculous
But
rule.
like a fan can do it. But if you have a credential, then it's like off limits. That's what doesn't make a ton of sense. If you're a fan at the Formula One race and you're posting videos of the track, like they're not going to stop you. But if you're working in the media and they see it, they might try to stop you. They might kick you out.
They don't want media companies that aren't paying for
I
it to be able
understand.
to do
I
things that the media company
understand.
that is paying
But
for.
a random person who might have like 1 million followers and be an influencer and watch the race has a different set of rules. That's why like in the modern era, it doesn't really make a lot of sense anymore. Like if you're gonna watch the TV broadcast, you're not gonna follow along on someone's Instagram stories to see who won the race. It's not the same thing.
You don't think it makes sense for NBC to deny anyone to be able to use on television at a competing network in a sports
No,
space?
we're not talking about television.
No,
It's
but
social media.
I know, but you're saying it makes no sense to have these rules, and I'm saying TV can't take then what the influencer is doing and use that without permission from the league, without written consent. They're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for these rights. They don't want other media entities to get that stuff for free from wherever it is that they could get it. Fans is a different thing. Fans are actually doing more of what Chris Cody says, which is just spreading word of mouth publicity. They don't have a reason to
There
ban
are
that.
signs posted. Where are we as a society? We're blatantly filming signs that say "Do not film."
It's because
Where
of,
are your parents?
it's the Tua thing, isn't it? It's because of the one video where he,
Raise these people. It's clear as day.
Why do you not want the video?
Because why put up the sign, Dan? There's a sign. Okay, these are the ground rules. I have entered a contract with this facility. My presence here is a binding contract that I will adhere to the rule of law. Now, we're just taking out our phones, flipping them willy-nilly out, and just filming away. You don't do that. You don't do that. What happens if he had an incompletion? What happens if he underthrew it?
No.
Then we have a 2 weeks worth of content
The Dolphins
here.
have already taken care of that. You don't have to worry. They'll just tweet that from their own account when that happens.
You're 100% right, but Mike is so right. How about the poor guy that put up a sign that no one's paying attention to? I mean, that's not fair.
What are the most ignored signs in society?
Stop signs.
Yeah, but if I'm rolling through it, am I
A
kind of
yield
listening?
sign.
What do you mean?
No one yields.
People yield.
I mean,
People yield more than they stop.
I don't need the
No,
sign
no,
to
no.
tell me to yield. The circumstances tell me to yield.
The person walking across.
There's a crosswalk. There's a roundabout. These are must-yield
You'd
situations.
be
I don't need a
surprised
sign.
how many people don't yield.
Yeah, I think every road sign has been developed as a result of people not having common courtesy on the road. That a yield sign has always been required. I don't think road signs are our game here in terms of signs that get ignored. It's got to be like, public places like sports stadiums and stuff like that where people just ignore, very common rules and there's a sign up, but you're not paying attention to it.
mine is the no smoking sign. I mean, that's it.
I think all intersections should be those roundabouts.
I agree.
Those things are very efficient.
100% agree.
Enough with street lights and the four-way stops. You just every intersection do
I
that
think
roundabout shit.
You've never been in a major city that has a roundabout though. I was around one in Mexico City.
Scary.
It's like 8 lanes wide and we're going in circles. Terrifying.
If you don't know what you're doing, that seems like a place. Every time I pulled up to one, and maybe because I'm unfamiliar and it's not how I drive in America, but every time I do it, I'm like, there must be more accidents here than there are at other intersections.
People are more careful. Regular intersections are actually extremely dangerous, Dan. We should all be abiding by the roundabout. There's roundabouts in a lot of like random municipalities and cities around the United States. And whenever I discover one, it's purely delightful.
We're not talking about these free-for-alls, because Whitty and I were in LA, and in like Hollywood Hills, there's this one intersection where it's like 5 roads, and it's just there's no roundabout. It's just
legitimately a free-for-all.
It's just like go for it, find your street,
go.
But I'm talking about those things where it's like everybody's going right, and if you want to make a left, you got okay. I just want to make sure we were on the same page and we weren't talking about these free-for-alls, because these free-for-alls are terrifying.
We have some of those in Coconut Grove. There are a few of those. But can you guys? There must be information on this. In Pembroke Pines, recently, according to insurance claims, the intersection at Pines and Flamingo, I think, was ruled the most dangerous intersection in the United States based on accidents. This was a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's still the case, but there must be a way to look up whether a regular intersection. Put it on the poll, please, Chris, at LeBatard Show. What's more dangerous? And you guys want to explain what a roundabout is to the people so that they understand what it is? Because what's more dangerous, a roundabout or a regular intersection? Because people do go slower, but not people with confidence. People who are used to driving in the roundabout and going around in circles, they're very confident. They're more confident about what they're doing than I am as I get on it, because I do so with fear because I'm not used to it, and it's basically just a circle with stop signs and exits as well. But it's just it's what it sounds like.
When you're doing something with fear in your car, are you like bracing? You're like, oh, here I go. Like, are you like saying little noises before you do it?
No, you have to just have this. All right, fuck it, I'm going.
It's a bad thing, like a bad rule to have with driving.
Run out of DuPont Circle, see how it goes.
In these roundabouts, you have to have an F it, I'm going mentality. Wow. By the way, the Florida Highway Administration reports that roundabouts reduce injury and fatal crashes by 78 to 82% compared to conventional intersections.
Yes, because you're going 15 miles per hour. You're not traveling at a high rate of speed. There's probably a lot of little fender benders, little bumper cart crashes and stuff. The roundabouts that always get me are the roundabouts that are about 3 lanes wide. Yeah. Because what am I supposed to do if I'm operating from the outside, but I need to get in the inside? I understand right of way to a degree.
That's what Whittingham is saying. This is, you always have to be dangerous. You have to be worried because there's someone else who's not going to do what I do, which is, this has happened to me a number of times. Oh, I'm going again. I'm going again on the roundabout. It looks like I'm going.
You just do the full circle.
Looks like I missed the place I was supposed to go. I'm not going to get those 3 lanes. Looks like I'm going to get another wee on the roundabout because I'm not someone who drives with a fuck it mentality.
It is very forgiving of mistakes, the roundabout. You can just keep going. Say, all right, missed it that time. It's not like the guy who cuts across 4 lanes of traffic to make their left turn, even though there's a U-turn 500 yards up the road.
You showed some Monday morning restraint while laughing and hiding your laugh at the way that I described a roundabout poorly to the listening audience that might not know what a roundabout is.
Well, I mean, if you don't know what a roundabout is, it's so like a traffic circle. We don't need to get in the weeds in terms of painting a vivid picture. I know it's an audio medium, and sometimes, like, look, if we're talking about Bob Kuchenberg, I understand that there's going to need some context applied, but you need to give the listeners some credit.
We didn't give them anything on Kimbo Camper, Bo. We did not give them anything on the 67-year-old Kimbo Camper. I don't know, though, how common these are all around America. I associate them with foreign countries. Am I wrong about that?
I think they're traffic circles everywhere.
They're more modern now. Like, if you see roadways that have been built up recently, you see more of them. At least in like not major. I don't see them like university. I'm naming random roads, but you don't see them at major intersections. Yeah, that's where I want them.
You see them in the suburbs, so people don't go speeding through your neighborhood, causing all sorts of racket. There are these things, Dan. They're called sidewalks, and they're basically highways for pedestrians.
I'm not talking about the little ones you find all over Hollywood. I'm not even talking about Hollywood Circle. I'm talking about the big ones, like in France, that feel like they're highways.
The Champs-Élysées?
Thank you. That was not helpful in any way.
Did I play the fancy lad sound for you?
L'Arc de Triomphe, actually.
You're right. That's my bad. I'm not going toe-to-toe with you on French.
No,
Learn my lesson.
It is the Champs-Elysees.
Oh, it was?
But the roundabout is
the roundabout is the
L'Arc
Arc.
de Triomphe.
Yeah.
That roundabout, I actually was a passenger in once. Holy shit. That it seems like a free-for-all, but there is actually some order to it.
Because, Jessica, I think one of the distinctions being made here with Whittingham and the searching of the internet, I'm not talking about the places in Coral Gables where you're going 15 miles an hour. When I'm talking about fear, and I'm talking about something
Coral
that
Gables
feels...
has a very tricky traffic circle there, Dan. It's really bad. That's one of those three lane ones by Miracle Mile. Oh, my God, that one gets me almost every time.
I'm talking about what Jessica's saying. The free-for-all. Something that feels like a highway that is a little harder.
It's just every street in Miami, though, Dan.
It's a little harder to convince me that that is safer than an intersection. But when you talk about 75 or 80% safer, Whittingham, is it because in one of the instances in an intersection you might be going 45, and in all the others that you're talking about, other than the Champs-Elysees, you're talking about 15 miles per hour?
Well, it says here, a typical intersection has 32 conflict points compared to only 8 at a roundabout. The 8 remaining are all same direction conflict points, exposing drivers to minor collisions such as side swipes instead of deadly head-on accidents.
No T-bones at a roundabout, basically. That's what we're trying to avoid here, folks.
Stugotz, are you willing and ready and able to do your weekend observations?
I am, Dan.
All right, we're going to do them next. Stugotz has got to get out of here. We will get to the Deshaun Watson news in a moment. He gets 6 games. That is a light penalty. It is lighter by legions than what Calvin Ridley got for a $1,500 parlay. It's going to be hard to avoid that comparison. We will also get to the passing of Bill Russell in a moment. And we have to get to Pat McAfee continuing to do things in wrestling that I'm startled by, because jumping off the top rope, losing your balance at SummerSlam, and doing a backflip outside the ring is not something I had being done by somebody who's not a professional wrestler. And it's fairly amazing to watch these things. But yes, I mean, he was.
I had the losing the balance part done by a non-professional wrestler, to be fair.
Oh, but then correcting it.
Yeah, he got helped out a lot by the guy that he was wrestling. It's an overlooked thing, how much the person you're attacking, air quotes, is there to protect you.
Well, bum-ass Corbin was greeted by McAfee hiring a male choir to ruin his introduction, singing bum-ass Corbin. Bum-ass Corbin exists, as far as I can tell, to make McAfee a star, all of him.
Yeah, I mean, they're strapping a rocket to Pat McAfee. He's had clean wins over guys of repute in professional wrestling. No, they're really building him up to be an attraction over there.
To go from losing your balance, though, to
hell of a recovery,
to backflipping out of the ring and hitting your bum-ass Corbin, hitting him when he's standing outside the ring. Still an unbelievable recovery, given that I wouldn't have the courage to step into any of that. I wouldn't want to be seen doing that in front of that many people.
Oh, that goes almost without saying. He his first match against Theory at WrestleMania, well, that wasn't his first match, but main card match, was a little bit more fluid than this one. It was really tempting fate a couple times. Wrestling gods were on his side, but he is absolutely a star. If you look at the balance of their roster right now, you can make an argument that he's one of the more over babyface attractions in that company. I could see him actually getting a proper babyface run.
How many of those guys do they have on the roster? Because there's Logan Paul, who guys that they have, they brought in for more of their audience, right? They're trying to get bigger audiences by bringing in people with audiences.
Good. He's also better than I thought.
He was phenomenal.
He seems like, I mean, he's a little younger than Pat McAfee, so I could see him, they're both legitimately good at this.
I think the celebrity element is something that Vince McMahon always kind of gravitated to. They're probably, WWE as it is presently constituted isn't the same if it wasn't for bringing in Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper and having that cross appeal. But now they kind of found that if we make these people, they saw it with Bad Bunny at WrestleMania, went incredibly well. They're really touting their social media metrics. If you want to really get into what that means, they're just trying to hype up some numbers for a possible sale. They've realized that getting guys like Logan Paul and Pat McAfee and Bad Bunny involved, if they can go in the ring and be parts that you can build a storyline around actually brings a lot to the company. And Nick Khan probably came aboard and accentuated something that was always a fixture of WWE, but it's going very well for them.
Dwight Howard also thinking about taking it up and going to tryouts after his career.
And then you have the Ric Flair match.
We'll
I
get
love
to that in a second.
I love that. Flair match was way better than anything I saw in WWE over the weekend.
No.
That's not true.
No.
You don't need to be doing flips, almost losing your balance on the top
He
rope
almost
to
had
tell
a
a
heart
good
attack.
story.
He almost had a heart attack.
He was just selling it.
Eye jab.
I love that he went from
Dirtiest player in the game.
73
Boom, still
years
got it.
old,
Eye
went from
poke.
faking a heart attack.
He's a terrible actor.
front of
It's
his
clearly a
children.
fake heart attack.
No, man. I was worried. I was worried. Did you see the quotes before the match? He's like, well, no doctors have told me not to do it. He's just like, don't ask, don't tell policy when it comes to his personal health. He was wearing it as a badge of honor that he got his
winded.
BPM up to like 150.
He was winded by the time he got to the ring.
Yeah.
I saw him a radioactive shade of red in a photograph tying his shoes before the match.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
At
a lot.
at one point, he just laid down on the mat in the corner for like 5 straight minutes while his tag team guy was wrestling. He's just laying there on his back. I'm like, is he dead?
I loved that match. I love the story that it told. However, both the shoulders were down. That's a double pin.
That's what I was
It's a double pin. Rick didn't win that match. Jared has a case.
Dan, tying the shoes is a tricky game. It is. I mean, the blood starts rushing to your head. It makes you look a lot more exhausted than you actually are. It's a very dangerous, tricky game, especially if you're our age and you bend over to do it. You need I'm telling you, you need a good chair to put your foot on, and then you tie the shoes. But bending down to do it, you'll look like a mess afterwards.
Okay, but that's 70s and 80s. That's Kim Bokamper's
for me
age.
right now.
That's not. Come on, Stugotz. We'll do weekend observations in a second. But again, I want to point out to the audience, this is the thing that happened. Ric Flair had his last match. You can make the argument, maybe greatest wrestler ever. He faked a heart attack in front of his family that had to be legitimately worried that he actually wanted to die in the ring and was okay dying in the ring if that was the result. A man who's been hit by lightning multiple times. Faked a heart attack in front of his family and then went eye gouge right out of it. Eye poked right out of it. And then this is another thing that may have escaped people's attention. Wrestled the entire match in a shirt.
Yeah, I mean, he did that for
2
you.
shirts, I think.
He did that for you.
Sad.
Yeah, you don't want to. He's 73 years old. He understands the aesthetics.
Only 73, huh? Simultaneously, like, wow, he's lived to 73 and only 73.
There was one shot after he won where he lifted his arms. It was such a bad angle for his
can't believe
underarms.
we're doing
They
this.
cut away from it so fast.
Guys.
You could tell in the truck, they're like, no, cut away. Rather, other angle.
He's a 73-year-old man that's been in an airplane accident and wrestling damn near his entire life and has a pacemaker. I've never seen someone at
Mike,
that age with a pacemaker.
Why the
mix
hell
it
is
in.
he wrestling
Because
then?
he's a goat, man. And he's addicted to it. And this is probably just kicking off a last match tour.
There was like he did some of his shtick, but like he didn't hardly do any woos. He
was tired, man. He's old. He has a pacemaker. It seems like a difficult thing to do.
You say it's 73, and he was wearing the shirt because when he wasn't wearing the shirt, he was doing a lot of steroids, and that doesn't hold up at 73.
Whoa. How dare you probably be right about a reckless accusation about professional wrestling in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Time now for Stugotz's weekend observations.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Weekend observations. What happened there? I mean, the voice was holding up so well. I'm in much better weather. Lake Placid, Dan, you know where I am. Lake Placid, home of the greatest goal in the history of American hockey. I mean, how about that?
That's good quality phlegm he's got going right now, though. That phlegm sounds
Feels
great.
good. Yeah. Anyway, weekend observations brought to you by Miller Lite. Great taste. 96 calories. Available for delivery. Dan, you can smell it in the eroding air that is 25 degrees warmer in most places than it should be this time of year. It's so close, we can almost touch it. Franchise quarterbacks are fighting with anyone who dares lay a hand on that red jersey. Tensions are running high. Wide receivers are having fun. The tackling sleds are out. So are the jugs machines. And Dan, just like that, football is back. Speaking of back, Jacob DeGrom, the DeGrominator. Derek Jeter. My friends insult me way worse than that. I stand with Alex. Jeets, the captain. A-Rod. Dan, you know what the C in the captain stands for?
I do not.
Sensitive. The Cardinals. What happened there? The Cardinals took out the study clause in Kyler Murray's contract. You, of course, know what that means, right, Dan?
They backed down.
The Cardinals tried to do the impossible. Put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Oh, wow.
It can't be done, Dan.
Cannot be done. You're right.
No one's ever done it.
No one has ever done it. Put it on the poll, Chris. Has anyone ever actually gotten the toothpaste back in the tube?
Death, taxes, and Daryl Morey being accused of tampering. The Jags cut a kicker who hit an innocent bystander with an errant field goal. Number one, that's so Jacksonville. Number two, if you hit someone from Jacksonville with an errant kick, you shouldn't be cut. You should be signed to a lifetime contract. And number three, no one in Jacksonville is innocent. Corrigan family, Under Armour, and Inside Lacrosse. Oh, I got something for you.
What happened?
How do you have what happened there, Dan?
What did happen there? Before you get to the lacrosse thing, I skipped over the PJ Tucker thing. The idea of losing draft picks and getting fined money because you were in a giant zeal to overpay a 40-year-old PJ Tucker at the end of that contract.
He's a guy, though, Dan.
Yeah, I like him. I just think it's funny to get penalized like that. Harden had to rework his contract. Like, there's all sorts of things that had to happen in order to get the 40th year of PJ Tucker's defense.
That's what you do, Dan, for picks, for toughness, for championship DNA. That's what you do anything for it. Seriously. Corrigan family, Under Armour, Inside Lacrosse. How do you have a 2022 All-American game that has a team from the North playing a team from the South, and 39 of the 44 players are from Maryland or north of Maryland, when the number one team in the country the last 2 years, according to you, resides in South Florida? Throw the game, my ass.
I mean, this is oddly personal. Mike,
Dan, how do you do that? I have the number one team in the country. We haven't lost a game in 2 years. There's a 2022 All-American game, and you have a North-South team. And all the girls who are playing on the South team are from the North. And the number one team in the country is from South Florida. That's disrespectful to South Florida lacrosse, is it not?
To you, and it's not, you're not wrong, and it's regionally wrong, but I just don't understand why it's so high in the weekend observation.
We were worried about explaining traffic circles earlier.
Yeah. I mean, July, August, that's why it's so high, Dan. The Cardinals took out the study clause in Kyler Murray's contract. Unfortunately for us, I already did that one.
What happened?
Well, Stugotz, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Mike, you got it.
What just happened? Did your eyes go back to the top, or do you have that sandwiched around your lacrosse pitching?
I can tell you what happened. I had it, I had the lacrosse observation, and then you went back to Daryl Morey, and I scrolled back up to Daryl Morey, and I forgot to scroll back down.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what happened there.
Yeah.
He had to have his observation as a frame of reference for the conversation.
Yeah.
It's one of the many things lost, Stugotz, when you don't have the papers in front of you that we can just hand you.
Yeah, that's a good point. It wasn't turning 50 over the weekend that made me feel old. It was playing pickleball. Oh, boy.
Is that why you wrote in the chat, I think there might be a Pilates class starting soon?
I am sitting in a gym right now, right next to an indoor pool, Lake Placid, New York, home of the greatest goal in the history of American hockey, and hockey in general, to be honest with you. And I believe I'm in a Pilates studio, and 3 people have walked in and then walked right back out. So I don't know what I'm doing here.
You're broadcasting from a Pilates studio? I thought that was Abby behind you. They're just random.
That makes 2 of us that don't know what you're doing there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Zach Taylor said Joe Burrow will be back when he's ready. August. He said it in July. I want to call it July. He actually said it in July. Dan, can I get a ruling on this?
I mean, you did make the observation in July. It was a headline from July. Today is August. So yes, you can make it July.
All right. You thought Abby was coming for a Pilates class?
I don't know where you are or what you're doing, Stugotz. I just know I showed up today and you were in Lake Placid. I don't know where. Like, why are you at a Pilates studio? Is that where the audio's the best?
Yes, it's quiet here. It's private. It's very nice.
But it's not private. There are 3 people.
It was. I mean, until these Pilates people walked in, getting in my way.
What do they make? What do they make of their situation? Pilates is great, but I don't want Stugotz broadcasting his takes on Kyler Murray while I'm doing them.
Disagree.
Tim Anderson, 3 games for bumping an ump. Josh Donaldson, 1 game for racist comments directed at Tim Anderson. Huh? Still waiting for confirmation from my sources, but feeling pretty good about reporting that on the first day of Dolphins training camp, Tua overthrew Tyreek Hill on purpose. People ripping the Cardinals over the study clause for Kyler Murray. Do me a favor. While you're at it, rip Kyler Murray. He's the one who agreed to it. Put his name on it. Signed it. Now, what is going on here? Listen, the Cardinals did the right thing. They took it out, Dan, but Kyler Murray agreed to that thing.
Yes.
Thanks.
It was dumb all around. Yes, dumb for everybody.
Congratulations to Gardner Minshew, who was featured on the cover of this week's edition of July. Minshew Mania.
That was great, though.
I don't care about Minshew anymore. He's not even the starting quarterback.
He's living in a prison bus outside the gym, and he's showering inside the gym for 5 months. That's not fun. Nothing interesting about that to you? That he's and it's not even a big prison bus. 5 months he lived in a prison bus. An NFL quarterback lived in a prison bus outside of a gym in Bonita Springs. Not interesting?
No.
With like orange couch, he did the interior. Look at Mike Ryan. Mike Ryan is dreaming of a day before kids and responsibilities when he could live like that and wear jorts and take a picture on the top of it, outside the gym for ESPN.com.
Had me at Bonita Springs.
It's a prison bus. An NFL quarterback lived for 5 months in a prison bus.
I feel like that would stick out in Bonita Springs.
Calling him an NFL quarterback.
He's got like 47 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions.
Give me a break.
Okay.
He'll be starting where? Tell me where Gardner Minshew is going to be starting this season. Go ahead.
I don't have any complaints about Gardner Minshew. 6th-round pick. I've enjoyed his entire career. When I was introduced,
congratulated him. He's on the cover of this week's edition of July. I mean, what else? Put that up in September. See how it goes. I mean, no one cares. Jalen Hurts is the quarterback. I say that as a guy who is currently doing his job right next to a gym, an indoor swimming pool, and inside a Pilates class. I mean, Will Smith, Chris Rock, the whole thing. Enough.
Right?
Enough.
I mean, I can't get enough. I can't.
Oh, shit. You're the problem.
Chris Rock has got to be making material out of this that he only disperses in his stand-up for the rest of the time. Use it as a ticket sale. Never commented on it. Never comment on it except in your routine so that people have to pay for it.
Dan, the effing Ferrari stands for fucking it up for Charles Leclerc every week. You didn't know that, did you?
Well, I mispronounced his name that way last week, and Frenchie corrected me.
Who's Frenchie?
Bill Russell. Rest in peace, sir. You are firmly and forever entrenched in my top 5 winners of all time. Top 5 winners of all time.
Oh, here we go. Can you believe that one city has 2 of them in 2 different sports? That's crazy.
It's according to your top 5.
Well, I bet you it's your top 5 too.
I think you're right. Damn it. Number 5, Mike Garuzioni. And I'm not just saying that, Dan,
Yes, you
because
are.
I am right
Yes,
down the
you
street
are.
from the hockey arena where he scored the most famous goal in the history of
That
hockey
is why
that
you're
won the
saying
United
it.
States a gold,
It's the only
even
reason.
though it wasn't a gold.
It is the only reason you're saying it, and it wasn't
They
the
had to
gold
beat
medal
Finland
goal.
in the finals.
Yes.
Number 4, Pat Summitt. Number 3, Tom Brady. Number 2, Bill Russell.
There it is.
And number 1, care to guess, Dan?
I have no idea. Can't even imagine who this would be.
Michael Jordan. He won like 8 less championships than Bill Russell.
I love that you are somebody who will criticize anybody. You'll find the way to criticize anybody, and you'll have a different take just to zig. And yet here you have the most common opinion in the world. Michael Jordan is the best.
But no one has Mike Garuzioni in their top 5.
That's correct.
Nobody.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Yep, exactly. Apologies to Yogi Berra, by the way. And watch out for the Metropolitans. Aaron Judge. What the hell? Speaking of hell, Dano. Art Briles. Dan, those are the weekend observations.
Enjoy the Pilates.
I'm going to watch my daughter play lacrosse, man. I'm excited. By the way, I do an hour. I get to expense this on you, right? That's good?
See you later.
See you, buddy.
There are some things in sports that we want to talk to you about to get some history, some perspective. But the news is breaking right now, before we talk about Bill Russell, that Deshaun Watson has gotten 6 games. And as skeptical as I am in general of that industry and investigation, and as awful as this seems, because 6 games seems awfully light for the scandal and shame of dry humping tables and just the awful that he has done to women, 6 games seems amazing, does it not?
Well, as we would say in Boston, pardon the laughter, right? I mean, seriously, the reason why... You knew this was coming yesterday. When you saw that release by the Players Association, essentially that was their way of saying, boy, we got a great deal and we're all going to abide by it. It was, in some ways, it was a humble brag before the announcement. We got away. And I couldn't believe that statement, because you would have never gotten that statement if he had gotten 2 years. You would have never gotten that statement if he had gotten anything close to what any of us would consider to be justice. And I think that there are 2 things about this that really need to be examined. And one is obviously, how this went down. But the second is the structure of Deshaun Watson's contract. Because that contract was absolutely backloaded away from whatever suspension he was going to get.
$1 million for the first year is something absurd, right?
Something absurd. I mean, and this is in some ways, this is in some ways one of the most egregious things you're going to see in terms of the NFL and the players, and in some ways, even the Players Association, in a lot of ways, just saying, we're untouchable. I mean, if you can't get me on this, you can't get me on anything.
Let's talk about the mechanics of this. And I'd also like to talk about how women are supposed to feel when $1,500 of parlay bet by Calvin Ridley, the integrity of the league.
Well, that's the troll. Exactly.
And the league can make its argument about on-field product and integrity. And yes, we would never say so publicly, but the integrity of our games does matter more than women. We can't frame it that way, but we just gave the punishments that would indicate it. But let's talk about the mechanics of the machine here instead of whether or not the penalty was stiff enough. You have an independent investigator with much, much time, more time invested in finding the facts around this than we are. You have a players association that must fight for its players because Roger Goodell has been heavy-handed of getting into this business where he gets to apply larger than the law punishments because he's making it up as he goes along. The system just conspired to take some of that power away from Roger Goodell over the bodies of women. But the Players Association has to make the argument on behalf of Deshaun Watson, has to defend its client, does it not?
And it should, absolutely. You have to do that. I mean, it's their job to do that. And it's also the job of the independent arbiter to make whatever conclusion she chose to. So we need more information on that. When that verdict comes down, when that decision comes down, we'll find out exactly what all that went into it. And maybe at the end of the day, it gets so muddy that this was the way to go and that this is how it works. On its face, however, you do have to wonder, on the one hand, there's no question this is, in a very bizarre way, a long-sought and overdue victory for the Players Association because of the way Roger Goodell could simply be the untouchable judge, jury, and executioner, the law and order commissioner, whatever other trope you want to come up with, because that's what he's been for the last 12 years. And so, so there's that. But on the other hand, you do have to come up with, there's going to be at some point a question that they can't answer, which is how do you look people in the eyes and make sense of this to them, unless something spectacular happens and you get a bunch of recantations or something, which I don't see. I'm
wondering though, Howard, because it begs the question. It does. Like, what does she know that we don't? What does the arbiter, what information does she have? I think most reasonable people listening to this do not believe that many women came forth because there's nothing here. And if Roethlisberger gets, 6 games or whatever it was, 8 games that he then negotiates down to a lower penalty, what am I to make of 6 games?
Well, what you can make of it, it's not that different from Cosby, who went to jail and then suddenly wasn't in jail anymore. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can make from it. One of the things you can absolutely make from it is the argument that his off-field and his on-field, the same Calvin Ridley argument, that the two are not connected, and that he went through a legal process. And by making those settlements, that the two are really not connected. That, okay, you tell us whenever something goes down in the league, you say, we're going to let the law follow its course. Okay, so we're going to make a line here. We're going to separate the two. And in separating the two, he made his settlements. Whatever machinations went through the legal process, that's done. And now what does this actually have to do with football? And maybe that's where she's coming from. I'm looking forward to finding out more, but absolutely, you're right. If you're going to make the argument, essentially it's a morals clause, right? If you're going to make the argument.
And everyone is incentivized here, Howard. Everyone. In the climate of the day, everyone is incentivized to overpunish here. For them to come off as a league after all of this talk as light on this, what does the arbitrator know? She's spent more time. She's an independent, and she has spent more time with this than all of us. I mean, maybe I can assume most cynically, oh, the league just wants one of its quarterbacks on the field. Rich people negotiated for a long time to get to here, all of whom have a lot more information than we do on this because they're going through the details that aren't just the voices of the women, that have Deshaun Watson's voice in them, which we have not heard very much of. What's known here? I can't say it's unfair until I know what it is that she's actually ruling on. What does she have that I don't know?
Yeah, that's right. And what is she basing it on? Because maybe, once again, maybe what this is all being based on is that, okay, there is an on-field line and an off-field line. And that maybe what's actually taking place right now is the curbing of Goodell's power to affect people's lives off of the field.
This is what I'm asking you. I think this ruling affects Goodell's do it however he wants, velvet, or iron
100%.
fist.
This is a huge victory for the Players Association.
But it's also a defeat for what Goodell rode to his salary of the present day, which is I will over-punish these criminals. My league will not be run by off-field malfeasance. Now they take it out of his hands. This takes the power out of Goodell's hands and puts it in Deshaun's?
Well, it takes the power out of his hands and puts it into and maybe it puts it in a place where Goodell's not going to be in this job that much longer anyway. Maybe what it does is it simply creates the new precedent that anything that happens off the field, that the league stays out of your business. What? And that do you have that whole the NFL is a right, not a privilege type of stuff? Maybe they're punting. And punting in a way that Major League Baseball is not, because Trevor Bauer has not been on the field. We haven't seen him, and this is going in the second year now.
What I
Third
think
year.
We're forgetting, though, is that, in a lot of ways, the NFL's own reputation works against these women, even despite this new collectively bargained arbitrator agreement. If you're a woman who's accused Deshaun Watson of something, and say you've filed a civil lawsuit, you may not have been part of this investigation. You may not have wanted to come forward and cooperate with the NFL for a number of reasons, because as Jenny Vrentis reported last summer, two of the women that were part of the NFL investigation felt that the line of questioning was victim blaming. So there might be a reason for you not to want to participate with the NFL in the first place. And there also might be a reason why, for one reason or another, Sue Robinson decided she didn't want to hear certain testimony from certain people. We don't exactly know who she did hear from, and we can't assume that she knows more than we know. She might have actually considered less than what we've read in news reports that have been.
That seems not. Does that seem possible?
Yes, of course.
This isn't a jury. It's not I would assume she has all the information plus.
No, I think Florio reported last week that wasn't the case. She didn't hear from every single woman who filed a civil suit. They heard from a subset of those women, and some women, I think, who may not have filed civil suits but were part of the criminal investigation. So we can't assume that she somehow uncovered some secret truth that the public hasn't been let on to yet.
I also think it's worth noting that from a Roger Goodell standpoint, his role to play in this is still to be determined, because in the 3 days in the aftermath of the recommendation, either the player or the league can appeal, and that appeal is heard by Roger Goodell. So if the NFL decides to sit it out and not appeal, then one would presume that this is an era of, as you said, Howard, Roger Goodell saying, I'm washing my hands of this suspensions thing, and neutral arbitrator handles it, and we're going forward with it. But if they appeal and Roger Goodell hears it, then we're right back in the middle of they could potentially overpunish. It's been reported by Dan Graziano of ESPN that in negotiations, the NFL was asking for a 12-game suspension and an $8 million fine. So if the NFL decides to appeal, then maybe we get there.
Howard, this is crazy, because from Ian Rappaport, under Watson's previous contract, he would have lost $11.5 million from a 6-game suspension. Now it's $345,000 based on the new salary structure. Are we really seeing, Howard, if you had to guess, we're going to get more information as the day develops, that Roger Goodell's entire reason for being the celebrity, powerful commissioner that Manfred followed, because Goodell gave him permission on you can overpunish bigger than the law, that quietly the league lays down its sword on this one As soon as it gets to women, they're like, they've had no problem over-punishing and defending the over-punishment. Goodell lost so much credibility on that bounty thing, pretending like he didn't know what the Saints were. You're going to tell me that this is where this one dies?
No, I'm going to say that, well, I mean, you could make an argument that they over-punished on Ray Rice or under-punished on Ray Rice, but he never played in the league again. I think what you're really looking at here is a victory for the Players Association that nobody ever thought coming. You have to remember that the Players Association has been chipping away at Roger Goodell's power for a decade now. And they've been going after him through the court to make sure that he couldn't be omnipotent the way he was early in his tenure. And so what you may end up seeing here is the NFL in some ways abdicating that role, that piece of their responsibility. Now, obviously, if something goes wild, if you have something else, I get your point. You know, your point is, well, what could be more wild than this? What could happen out there that doesn't deserve the sort of attention that we're getting here? And actually, the guy that I go back to on this, Dan, is Kaepernick, because the argument that the Players Association was making on Kaepernick was what he's doing is not actually taking place on the field, therefore you cannot punish him. If you're using that as a baseline, then all this off-field stuff that the players are going through, as long as it doesn't really affect their job, you're going to get more and more nominal suspensions. And now you can make an argument that runs counter to what we've seen over the past 12 years, where Goodell is simply the guy who lays down the law and then you get punished. Or you can say, hey, it's about time that his power is finally being eroded.
I just think it's super interesting symbolically that you go from laying down the law to laying down your sword when he never should have been in this business. He did it for image reasons, and everyone profited off of it, even though he was ill-equipped and it was wrong for him to be thinking that he could manage domestic abuse-related things better than the law could when the law isn't very good at it either.
Well, and that the league itself was going to be the arbiter of moral conduct. It was like, why are we looking to Roger Goodell for this stuff? And so there's no doubt that this is a huge loss for, I mean, it certainly doesn't incentivize anyone to talk. Look at what's happening with the Washington football team Commanders right now. I mean, the message being sent across the board is, if you're a woman, do not get involved with the National Football League.
Howard, Watson wins. Like everyone else loses here. I understand. It's weird to say, right?
Players Association didn't lose. They won because they finally beat Roger Goodell on something that is a pretty titanic victory for them in terms of expecting that your guy was going to get a year and everybody gearing up that he was not even going to be on the field. He'll be on the field before Thanksgiving.
They game the system, though. It's one division game that he's missing. The lawyers and everyone who got involved, it's weird to say, right? Because Watson does get the shame to his name, and this will cost Watson because those attorneys are expensive. But good God, did they earn it? They manipulated the whole thing, Howard. I cannot believe, so much so that I'm asking where's more information. I can't believe that after all of that, it's not just 6 games, but it's where you see Roger Goodell's iron fist come undone.
Yeah, and where you're also going to see the collusion between the players and the Browns. The Browns need him on the field as well. I mean, all of this is dirty. I mean, let's just put that out front.
Let's talk about something that we wanted to talk about before this news broke, and the news cycle is always changing, and we have a way of skipping past excellence in these mediums to argue and critique and debate stuff in sports. But Bill Russell received universal applause by way of eulogy, passing at the age of 88. First and foremost, for the people who do not know, Bill Russell as icon. Tell us about him.
Well, I mean, there's no way to talk about Bill Russell. I mean, everything we talk about in these sort of reductive debates is always about winning. It's always about who did what. And what I always found fascinating about Russ was, as time went on, the number of ways people found a way to diminish their own arguments. They keep saying that winning is everything. You always hear Michael Jordan say, well, 6 is better than 5. Well, Russell's got 11 titles. 11 titles in 13 years. Not only does he have 11 titles in 13 years, but he's got a 56-game winning streak in college and wins the Olympic medal in Melbourne as well. I mean, everything about him was winning.
11 titles, 10 more than the city of Atlanta.
And on top of that the man was 21-0 in winner-take-all games. And then you listen to people talk about this, and then they'll say, oh, well, there was only 8 teams in the league, and they'll find different ways to mitigate. Oh, well, the players were, J.J. Redick, oh, well, guys back then couldn't play with guys today. The man won 11 championships. He won 8 in a row. He's the first black coach in the history of American modern sports, and then won 2 titles as a coach, as a player coach.
Winner, yes, but as icon, is winner the first place you go? Because with him, I can't help, Howard, with him, the photograph of Ali and Jim Brown and Kareem and those guys when it was really hard to be them.
As the first place, of course, as a Bostonian, the first place I go is the Celtics, because he was the guy who loomed over that whole city. He was the guy who loomed over that whole city in 2 ways. The first was he was the man. I mean, as a player, there's no getting around the fact that everybody else that you talked about, whether you talked about Bob Cousy or Red Auerbach, those guys were the beginnings of the Celtic dynasty, but neither one of them won a damn thing until Russell got there. They never even got into the finals. And so there's that. But then on top of that, there was Russell the man. And that's the piece of it where you really start to see, when we talk about this black athletic heritage, when you talk about all of these guys, whether it's Tommy Smith, John Carlos, Jim Brown, Ali, all of them, that Russell was the rock behind all of it. And in terms of, he took this stuff as dignity goes, as a guy making sure he was in control of his own morality. And Bill Russell wouldn't sign an autograph. Why? Because he didn't want to be commodified. Bill Russell, if you wanted to celebrate him, he might say yes, he might say no. Bill Russell didn't show up to his own Hall of Fame induction. Bill Russell, the Celtics win the championship in '69. He doesn't go to the parade. He's the coach. And so here's a guy who really, really decided to do things on his terms. And the grief that he would have gotten, and the amount of advice that he had always gotten from people saying, oh, just let it go. Why are you so hardcore on all of these things? Because it mattered. I'm not going to play this game.
Larger than life, his story, Howard, because it takes us through sports, and it is heartbreaking to me that Muhammad Ali would die and see in America in much the same place, that Jim Brown walks with a cane, that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that these guys came through the civil rights 60s as icons, and him specifically, Howard, because I've heard you talk about this, he began part of the migration toward the modern day ghetto, correct? Like he was part. He was.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you should say that, because I was having dinner with Dave Winfield the other day, and he was talking about how things are as bad now as they were then.
Name drop. Everybody heard the name drop back there. I was having dinner with Dave Winfield. All of them reacted the same way. All of them. What happened, Mike? Give me honest thoughts to Howard.
Could have said you went to dinner.
Could have just said you went to dinner, but he needs the Dave Winfield context.
It's the Dave Winfield piece of it. Okay, how about this? I was talking to Dave Winfield. There was no food involved. I was just talking to Dave Winfield.
If you went to dinner with Dave Winfield, it was either awesome or terrible. There was no in between.
Well, you know what, though? I'm gonna say something that's just gonna lower my cred worse than my hamstrings, which, by the way, are feeling better now. Thank you all for that.
Impossible.
And all the laughs that you guys got at the expense of my pain. You know, all right.
Have you ever heard of another human being who has blown out both hamstrings?
It's never happened. The only thing close was when Carson Wentz had to wear 2 walking boots because he turned both ankles. It's the only comp in human history that I have.
You've worked in sports for a long time. Have you ever encountered anyone hobbled by 2 torn hamstrings?
It is your legacy. I feel every time he comes on, he has to answer for this. I feel terrible.
All I'm going to say is what makes me feel even worse on this is that those guys are cigar smokers and I'm not, and I just have no game.
Oh, smoking a cigar with Dave Winfield. You could have been smoking a cigar with Dave Winfield.
Couldn't do it.
What was he telling you, though, about, because he grew up in Louisiana, Russell did, not Dave Winfield. And
yes, well, getting back to this, what I was going to say was that as part of that generation, he was saying that where we are right now makes it all sort of feel like, what was it all for? And when you look at somebody like Russell, who every single step in his career, when you talk about celebrating Bill Russell's career, you cannot separate celebrating that career from everything that he went through. The reason why he's in Oakland, you talk about, oh man, look at that unbelievable, he starts the migration, he and his generation, but they only go there because of all the grief they've got to deal with in Louisiana. You talk about the great teams in McClymonds High School, that him and Frank Robinson and Vada Pinson and Kurt Flood were all on the same, all classmates. Yeah, but they were classmates at McClymonds because black people weren't allowed to live in any other part of the city. He's this icon in Boston, but the reason why he's an icon in Boston is because St. Louis was so racist, they drafted him and traded him because they didn't want a black player to be the face of the franchise. So they trade him for Ed Macaulay and Cliff Hagan and let Bob Pettit still be the star. So all of these things are not lost on him. So the thing about Russell that I always found most amazing was that the fans wanted to celebrate him on their terms, and he was like, no, you have to understand mine. And if that makes me a jerk, it makes me a jerk. But you got to see this from the way that I see it, and sometimes I'm going to play along, and sometimes I'm not. I mean, Bob Cousy, who was the superstar in Boston, even though J.J. Redick loves to clown him for some reason, he's the superstar in the league. And, he had to admit that Russell was the better player, even though he was the guy getting all the shine and getting the ski trips and getting the endorsements and everything else. And so now here's Bob Cousy, 93 years old. If you read Gary Pomerantz's amazing book, The Last Pass, he's trying to reconcile with Russell as a 90-year-old, writes Bill Russell a letter saying, trying to talk about the 60s and how the times were and how he should have been better. And Russell didn't even play along, didn't even respond to the letter. Why? Because Russell wasn't the one who was trapped. Cousy's the one who was trapped. So he's like, hey, I'm free. You guys can deal with this any way that you want. And that was the sort of thing about Russell that I found so amazing. Everybody else called him bitter, but he did stuff on his terms and left it to everybody else. You need to figure out why you acted the way you acted, and you guys need to reconcile your own behaviors. And maybe you'll make a statue of me, or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll see me, maybe you won't. And if you notice, the last 12 years, he was actually really present. They named the MVP championship of the finals after him. And you saw him more often than you had, you saw him more in the last 15 years than you did in the previous 30.
You can't get bullied by the cigar aficionados. It's the easiest highfalutin thing to fake.
Yeah,
You don't inhale, you just light it, you puff it.
Cowherd's a big faker on the cigar.
You can fake it, Howard. You just light the end. It's not like golf. It's not like caviar. It's not like drinking Fernet Branc neat. Yeah, right? You can absolutely do this.
Once you take like one or two hits, you can even let it go out. No one's noticing.
Yeah.
Really, no one's paying attention?
You just talk with your hands a lot. Before you know, an hour's pass and no one notices.
Point at someone
but
with
actually,
it.
what you're really doing is you're ventilating.
Yes. Yes. You talk with your hands
getting
and you're
all
brushing
of
the
that
smoke away from your
smoke
face.
away from you.
Look, man, it's easy to fake. I've done it.
You really want to hammer home a point by pointing at them with the cigar.
Take a couple selfies, maybe put it at the corner of your mouth, go cha-cha-cha, the whole thing.
Do you feel, again with the hot cha-cha? Again with a hot cha-cha reference. I did not know that you had a Churchill.
She's got a Churchill in her locker. I had no idea. I'm learning so much about her over these last 2 weeks.
She knew French last week, and now we knew that she emerged with... Your face got fatter. You had some jowls. I saw jowls on your face. As you did your Winston Churchill. Getting back to the way that Boston treated him, because, yes, you're right, Howard. He got a lot of jerk and arrogant or aloof and bitter, and I always thought, well, what happened to him? Like, I think some things happened to him that might make him react in a way that covers himself with barbed wire and tells people to go fuck themselves every once in a while.
A little bit, and that's the thing, is that but in Black Boston, he was present. I mean, one of my favorite Bill Russell stories is when Pumpsie Green the Red Sox finally integrate in 1959, 14 years after Jackie Robinson is signed by the Dodgers. Pumpsie Green shows up in Boston, and who comes and picks him up in his gigantic, 12-foot-long Cadillac but Bill Russell, and drives him around Boston, shows him around the city. And, Bill Russell was iconic in the black community. Now, and that's the thing, is that is the beauty of Russell, an incredibly complex guy. And this is what we do in sports, right? You win, we want you to celebrate our way, and he wasn't willing to play along that way.
How did Boston treat him?
Well, Boston treated him the same way they treated everybody back then, which is that there's a double standard in Boston. And Boston is no different than how they probably would have treated him in any other city, except for the fact that Boston just explodes with racism in very high-profile ways without balancing a whole lot of good news. And so that's why Boston gets what Boston gets. But the biggest thing that Boston struggled with was attendance. You win 8 straight championships and you can't draw. I mean, that's as indicting as anything.
I believe that he can say, the group was talking to me and saying you can't be like every other city with an occasional explosion of racism.
Yeah.
So they were doing a show for me personally in my ear. And I was thinking to myself, I think he can say that about
You
most
can say
cities.
that, 100% you can say it. Why? Because St. Louis, look at St. Louis. St.
But they
Louis
also
is just as bad as
explode-
Boston.
But they also explode with racism, so it's just not like any other city. This
No,
one
the
is
biggest
booming
difference
with
between
racism.
Boston, I mean, every time we talk about this, the biggest difference between Boston and every other place is that Boston's black community just wasn't big enough. And you look at the way Boston sells itself. Boston sells itself with Mark Wahlberg and sells itself with Lenny Clark and Jay Leno. And you would never even know that anybody black was from Boston because they don't claim you the way black people who are famous in New York City are claimed by New York City or Philadelphia or the rest of those cities, where if you're a great player, they want to celebrate you. People don't even know black people are even from that city, and that's one of the biggest things. That if there was more balance there, if they were actually proud of their black people, we wouldn't be having these conversations.
Howard, good talking to you. Thank you, sir.
Hey, man, we'll see y'all later. Thanks for the cigar talk, though. I needed that.
You can do this, Howard.
You can.
I believe in you.
You can.
What
You can
about
be
the
a cigar
oatmeal
fraud.
talk?
Chris Cody, put it on the poll, please, at LeBatard Show. Do you know what a Rube Goldberg machine is? Because that's the word that I was looking for in describing an overly complicated contraption that at the end of it produces something. We were talking in general. I couldn't remember the name of it. But going back to last week, Whittingham, you had us over a barrel. Mike Ryan used the phrase to get caught over a barrel.
Yeah.
And
Ooh, quite the hot start today.
I
on
don't
the live
know.
YouTube.
I don't know the origins of that.
Do you just want to restart it?
Sure, let's restart.
All right.
Even though
Give
we're
us a
live.
countdown.
Even though we're live, give us a
In
countdown.
5.
Okay, yes. 4.
3, 2, 1.
The Deshaun Watson news is fairly shocking today. I think most people listening to this would say to themselves, that's an under punishment, even not knowing much of anything else, right? There aren't a whole lot of Deshaun Watson supporters out
Oh, yeah,
there.
they are. Yeah, no, there's plenty. In the state of Ohio, there's a bunch. In parts of South Carolina, there are a bunch. He has a very passionate, as any person that goes through scandal, like their defenders just fortify themselves in these beliefs. They're ultra defensive. They're in the wrong, but they don't want to admit it. They're stubborn. They're holding on to things they hold dear. Now, because of the sports tribalism, you have people that have to be all in and defend Deshaun Watson, even if they find it problematic. So I find Brown's Twitter has certainly changed over the last few months in staunch defense of this guy.
And they win now. You endured the hurricane of blowback. You endured Mike Ryan quitting his fandom of your football team because some of it was so dirty and disgusting. You have a quarterback's private parts, dry humping women, the details as expressed by these women of like throwing his semen at them are galling and feel like crimes. And the penalty is that Deshaun Watson wins. The Cleveland Browns win. They endured whatever had to be endured, and in the negotiations and guaranteeing him the money, they now get 10 years of Deshaun Watson. They ran off Baker Mayfield, the Odell Beckham thing, the season of expectations, all of that was run off. The bridge to that now gets you to Deshaun Watson, and very soon people will be talking about what is the impact of not playing that position
They went
at a high rate of speed for 2 years. Very soon, the conversation will turn to him as a player. And in 6 games, this might not be forgotten, but the Cleveland Browns will win. They have a franchise quarterback. The big winner today is not football. It's certainly not women. It's not Roger Goodell. It is Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. They win today with this penalty that has 1 division game in it.
Yeah, the key part being they win today. If you look at that franchise's history, and if you look at Deshaun Watson's personal history, you can't rule out, like, you think this is done? I personally don't. I think a lot of people are spinning this as a win. To me, an independent arbiter told you he did some of that shit. He got punished for doing it. The problems that you had with Deshaun Watson entering this are not gone. They've been confirmed by an independent arbiter, and yet it's framed as a win. He didn't lose a cent last season.
He's not losing much this season.
He's losing $345,000.
Again, this, man, oh man, if you're a woman watching this and the machine working this way to take away Goodell's power on this one, where you are realizing an emperor has no clothes situation. For so many years, Roger Goodell has gotten his salary to where it is as a piñata for the owners because he was the hard-line commissioner who was going to clean up the criminals in his league. And he overpunished beyond the law. And for him to not be able to fight this one out, for him to have to get out of the way as the Browns win, Deshaun Watson wins, and women lose, and your sport loses, but for 6 games. Because you think this is going to make its way into the broadcasts? You think there's going to be a lot of, you think in 10 games from now, hell, look at what Tyreek Hill has already done for the Dolphins. Look at what he's already done for the Dolphins. You think 10 games from now, anybody's going to be talking about a quarterback who had a dry humping table problem?
No, they'll talk about it Monday Night Football when he comes back, and I think league broadcast partners have shown you that they're not really all that interested in applying that kind of context to it. Look at the celebration of Ben Roethlisberger's career that ESPN threw on his final home game against the Cleveland Browns last year. They tend to avoid these things. It really disappoints me, and I can't say I expected more, that right now on Cleveland radio you have people celebrating this. You have people analyzing this right now on ESPN. What does this mean for the Browns? Only 1 division game. Wow, they got a lucky break with the schedule. All of it, to me, is very sad and pathetic because he did a lot of this, and he had the resources to settle it. You had someone in a position of authority tell you as much, that a lot of suspicions were confirmed, a lot of allegations were confirmed, and yet this is being held up as a major victory.
Can I go back, though, for a second, Mike, on the history of this? You get mad every time I frame this around Goodell, but Goodell has been here as a symbol for ownership shield. Goodell makes his money, a money that is now private because he makes so much of it. Because the television money is so giant. This man made his name on being the guy who punishes above the law. It's how he became the biggest commissioner in sports. Manfred follows him on Trevor Bauer. Manfred learned at his knee, wait a minute, when a guy does something like this, I can get rid of him for years and end his career. Goodell was the pioneer there, using his power like it hadn't been used by anybody since baseball commissioners actually governed the game in the 1920s. And today he puts down his sword. Today the players union and the lawyers and Rusty Hardin, all of them.
Well, we don't know if he's we don't know the appeals process, and it wasn't today. It was in the last round of collective bargaining in which everyone saw that Roger Goodell had too much authority over the punishment, the league discipline, and it got changed. This is not really a Roger Goodell story. For me, it becomes one if Roger then decides to take it into his hands and appeal this decision, because then he has a lot more power. And I think he just wants to avoid that entirely.
Doesn't he have to?
No, I don't.
Isn't he incentivized to look?
What, to keep this national conversation
incentivized
going?
To look like he cares, to incentivized to pretend like he cares. How this feels to his league. Which way is he incentivized today? Is it to make it a larger public fight where he says, look, I'm trying to do more here. I'm trying to govern the way I've always governed. I overpunish. I'm not the light on crime commissioner.
Well, who does Roger Goodell answer to? The other owners. Do the other owners want to draw this out? Because it's not Roger Goodell. Like, morally, I know for a fact Roger Goodell has been sampling opinions, asking for advice. What should he do? He's been running scenarios. But keep in mind, early on in this process, and we had reports that it was invoked, the behavior of other owners. Daniel Snyder, Jerry Jones. You think he wants to appeal that and have that discussion, go right back out there. The NFLPA already told you, NFL, you better not appeal this.
Okay, so just know then, if that's the way that they go, if the hardline commissioner says, nope, not interested in that fight, they will have told you. They would have put out the press release. Don't actually care about women. Don't even care how things look. Nope, just want it to go away. Want Deshaun Watson to win, the Browns to win, the NFL to win, and women lose.
And
like,
Roger
if
Goodell's
he does
doing his
not
job.
fight this.
But Roger Goodell's doing his job, right? Because you're blaming Roger Goodell right now when, like, he didn't come up with this decision. The league recommended a year. The league engaged in settlement talks trying to get 12 games.
The reason I'm blaming Roger Goodell is because I know that name, because he set forth the rules that made it so that in an instant like this, he can be governor. You tell me
right,
that.
But he also collectively bargained a scenario in which right now he can just walk away from this. He did not have a say in this punishment. He actually caught a public L. He wanted a year. And in settlement talks, he wanted 12 games and a hefty fine. Like, the loss that you're saying that it's just been like, we have a spotlight on this L that Roger Goodell perceived in the public. The L came years ago when they collectively bargained that he wouldn't be the guy.
Right, he's acknowledged that he's not going to do this anymore. He is not the over-punishing commissioner. Now, he still could be, because after this process, the appeal comes to him. If the NFL wants to appeal it, they can. But they negotiated this process, and this is according to Albert Breer, at least in part because some owners, after so many missteps in discipline over the last decade, wanted the NFL to take a step back in that arena and essentially outsource it to a neutral arbitrator. They have done so. This has been the product of it. And so Roger Goodell can decide right now whether or not he wants to continue to be in this game, or has he officially quit it.
You can't claim that you care about women if it's about how things look and business and everything else takes a priority over how it is you made your name as the Punisher. That's
harsh. I think it's too harsh. I understand. Look, I am not defending that the NFL cares about women. If you look at their toxic work culture, if you see how they covered up
Mike,
the Washington Commanders
if what you're telling me is that they can't set a precedent here because look at what it does to Snyder. All of this is still men protecting men.
Yeah, I think the decision to whether move forward, and we need that shoe to drop, the decision to move forward with an appeal, I think the priority there is not women. It's probably men who are in ownership positions because they don't want to have that conversation drawn out in public. I get you. But also, this was an independent arbiter who was a woman. Roger Goodell had nothing to do with this decision. His decision comes now. I imagine he's going to take the appropriate amount of time to move forward with what to do, and he's going to ask his bosses, the NFL owners, and they are going to care a hell of a lot less about women than maybe even he does.
Do I have something wrong in the system of this when I ask you guys the question, an independent arbiter who is a woman, does she have to take into account what has been their workplace precedent of Roger Goodell as an overpunisher, or is she giving 6 games to a guy who's gotten around the legalities of this and is dealing with civil complaints? Is she giving the extension of this is the new NFL where we still are punishers? Because in most workplaces, you could, if you have the value of Deshaun Watson, end up not suffering any 6-game suspension before this recent move toward 20 years of Roger Goodell doing the over-punishing thing to lead all of sports on, we will prosecute crimes that are not crimes according to the law.
I hear you, but if that person is applying context from something outside and not judging the case by just simply the merits of the case, then they are acting in a fallacy of justice, right? Because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be totally independent. You're supposed to block out anything that happened prior to, anything that might happen afterwards, your own personal bias about the league. That is not your job. when your sole focus is justice and fairness.
Do you understand what I'm saying? That before Goodell, there wasn't a scenario where a league could come in and give you 6 games for something that wasn't a crime.
Right.
There
were no crimes committed here, according to grand jury indictments.
That is correct. And yet still it gets 6 games. And what I am saying, Goodell set up a construct that I've been telling you for 15 years. The NFL is not equipped, not equipped, not equipped. They don't quietly get away at the end with, we'll sit it out now because I was wrong about all that over-punishing stuff. Now I'm making $40 million a year. We all profited off my over-punishing stuff because we couldn't have Chris Henry out here and Ocho Cinco committing crimes.
Right. I think the punishment that you want, you're more upset that Goodell's not getting enough punishment for the sins of his past.
Not just Goodell, the entire structure meant to camouflage all of the power so that Goodell is the highest you can go up on the heat because he's the pioneer on the discipline. That at the very end of this, what you get is, again, women trampled in the protection of Snyder. What you get again.
If he doesn't pull that last lever.
And why wouldn't he? He's incentivized to. The only incentive to not to is the bad look. You're saying the owners want it to just go away. They don't want more heat on Snyder. That's protection of the business. It's cowardice at the highest end.
It's also a partnership. You're adhering to a collective bargaining agreement, and you're listening.
Now you're agreeing to it. When you were the overpunisher and trampled everybody's collectively bargained rights,
you agreed to it.
And so when he gets my wrath, it's because it's the symbol they're throwing out there and paying that way to take it as they all hide behind him on a day where it can't be disputed that women were trampled in the process of protecting all entities in the business, when we're sitting here in Cleveland celebrating because it looks like, again, and pardon the pun, Deshaun Watson got off.
Yeah. I think Roger Goodell is earning his money right now during this segment. Because, again, we're not keeping our eye on the ball. We had someone tell us that Deshaun Watson did those things. He got a punishment for it. And we're out here talking about Roger Goodell when he was powerless in this situation, and now he can decide if he wants to throw himself in there. And what happens if he does? That doesn't mean you're going to take it easy on him.
But
it's
Mike,
still not going to be enough.
You say he was powerless in this situation. What I'm telling you is there's still time for him to not be that kind of impotent. He doesn't have to choose to be that powerless. He can in the defense of Daniel Snyder. But when people ask me what's to be done here, and I'm like, how about the right thing? He's actually incentivized to try and give him 12 games just so that it looks high. Even if he doesn't mean it, even if he doesn't care about women, the bluster of it would virtue signal.
I'm just so jaded by all of this. We're caring about optics, and we're talking about, well, then what feels right? This isn't enough. What feels right? 4 divisional round game. It's just... You get what I'm saying? It's stupid. The fact that Cleveland decided to get this quarterback, to me, is problematic. The fact that this league has this in their employ is problematic. The Commanders thing bothers me. All of this, I just find the parsing of, well, that's not enough punishment. Ooh, great. He comes back Monday Night Football. That's a home game against the Bengals. We can win that one now. All of it feels so stupid to me. All of it. There were victims here. Some of them have settled.
But they're still victims, is my point, Mike. All of this brings it right back up.
They're always going to be victims, too. Everybody but one. I think Busby just announced that 3 of the remaining 4 have settled. That's not, they got lucky. They had leverage in a negotiation. They were wronged. Their rights were trampled. Their privacy was invaded. None of that changes with today. Because Deshaun Watson, miraculously, in the eyes of Browns fans, is only missing 1 divisional game. It's what there was validity to those claims. And I would honestly be worried about having that person on my team still, because it's very clear with a mountain of allegations against him that he had a problem. And he's told you on the record that he's not going to be seeking help because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. So I would have a very deep concern. More so today than I had about Deshaun Watson even yesterday. All of it is gross to me. And I do kind of, in this scenario, and he is not a martyr by any stretch of the imagination, but Roger Goodell is a conversation? Really?
It's the system. It's not Goodell. It's how the system conspires, including to how it's discussed afterward, where it's 1 division game, and we know that more than the names of the victims.
Right. It's the owners, Dan. It's the owners.
I know, but Mike, the owners are shielded by someone they're paying handsomely to be the absorber of these things as he makes the rules. And I wanted pointed out in front of everybody that the owners here are protecting themselves in the service of the business through their lackey who has the power and is incentivized to use it right now, if not for the cowardice of having to protect the men in the building.
Well, now you're hitting it for me. Now you're starting to nail it.
But it's the same thing. To me, they're synonyms. To me, but to me, he's the highly paid shield for them so that they stay in the shadows.
I don't even think it's necessarily about NFL owners at the moment either. I think it's about a system that sucks with handling this particular thing. If you look at, for example, the arbitrator, Sue Robinson, according to Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, only heard 5 of the total complaints that there were when there's, I believe, over 30 now of the total complaints against Deshaun Watson. The NFL only investigated 5 of them, and that's the data that Sue Robinson worked off of. So we had a conversation earlier in the show. Did this woman have more information than the public?
Jessica said that she had less information than the public.
And that has been confirmed by reporting since. And so,
is an arbiter not allowed to read news reports? Like, is an arbiter an arbiter treated like a jury?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, in some ways, like the whole point of using an arbiter. Yeah, the whole point of it is to have some vehicle of the legal system used here.
What you're pining for is a violation of what that job aspires to.
I thought the independent...
The NFL does an investigation and then, like, presents their findings. So the NFL investigation, I think they only interviewed 10 of the women, and then she only included 5 in her judgment.
Right.
For whatever reason, like, she might have found, like, 5 of them she didn't consider rose to the level of worth punishing him for. Like, we don't exactly know. There's a 15-page report that I haven't read yet. But, yeah, like, the NFL did investigative work and then presented a case on their behalf, arguing for the indefinite suspension, and then she gets to decide like what of that evidence she's going to rule on.
The context should be framed by the two parties, not because the independent arbiter saw a segment on HBO Real Sports one day and is coming into it with a set agenda. That's not what you want out of an independent arbiter.
Okay, so you guys are going to have to forgive me on this, because I am, and I remain of the assumption until you prove to me otherwise, that an independent arbiter, all they're doing there is not bought by the league, independent of the league, and also not bought by the Players Association, independent of those two entities, aspiring to objectivity, but not sequestering herself and not able to get any other information from anywhere other than what's proven to her in arguments. I don't believe that that's the case for an independent arbiter. I think she's aspiring to objectivity, but she is perhaps watching HBO. She's not avoiding HBO Real Sports.
I understand the cynicism there, but the oaths that they take mean that they have to aspire to objectivity.
But again, for women who come forward, you have to relive this constantly in public. You have to see this man now run out onto the field on Monday Night Football. You have to continually watch as your cases are not believed. Your cases don't lead to bigger punishment.
Even as they've been proven, as Mike says.
Correct.
Like even as an independent arbiter has said.
Right. The criminal justice system does nothing with it via grand jury. This sucks for women in every single possible way. And so that, for me, is the story here, is how much the system fails women who come forward.
And I can't even imagine being a victim of Deshaun Watson's right now. I find this conversation triggering. I ran away from that franchise because I didn't want to be reminded of it. I want to avoid it as much as I humanly can because I have a visceral reaction to it. It doesn't feel like justice was served today, even though you have someone telling you something happened.
And you guys can get frustrated with this if you want, but my point, again and again, on Goodell and ownership, what is the point of having power if you're not going to actually lead with it? If every principle is going to be in governance of business, it is immoral. You want to talk about independent arbiter? Business owners here are independent in making sure that their needs of business are met no matter who it tramples. And if you want to give all these people with all the FU money in the world the power to change the power to lead, and all they do is throw that piñata in front of you at $40 million a year because he lives in service of protection of the rules and that system. The rules in that system, but it's not leadership. It's just making money. It's just protection of business.
Yeah, he's a CEO, basically. He's a front-facing suit that is answering to a capitalistic venture.
It should piss you off.
They don't make money by like being nice people. Like all of these billionaires who own football teams have gotten there one way or another by doing things that most of us would find morally objectionable.
And it lands at the feet of Roger Goodell, who probably should have hired an independent arbiter himself for his position here because he has his own biases entering in it. Think about the prism that you're asking him to run it through. It's like, we have to show that we're supportive of women, but I also have to see how this lands with Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder because of their workplaces.
It's not what I'm asking him to do. It's what he volunteered for when he took the job and they created it and they turned him into the guy who rides it on a stallion.
He's not volunteering for a job he's getting paid $60 million to do.
No, but he volunteered for taking up the effort to be criminal punisher, moral stand football. We're conservative.
I think for a while maybe he thought that like doing quote unquote the right thing was good for business, and it doesn't seem like it matters if you do the right thing or not. It's like the entire, like all of David Sampson's cynicism is basically just reiterating that over and over, that like as a leader of one of these businesses, you can basically operate in bad faith all the time, and people love their sports team so much that they don't really care. And that's what Sampson would say, at least, that these owners are banking on. I would argue that like that's pretty bleak and depressing, and I think it's probably worthwhile to call them out when they do it. But like that is the business of sports and of like a lot of large corporations in America.
12 years ago, you have your cigar-filled room of a bunch of NFL owners being embarrassed by the behavior of Adam Pac-Man Jones and say, we have to do something about this. They didn't really assume that 12 years later, their names would be invoked in the NFLPA's case of, wait a second, if you're going to punish us, you got to punish Robert Kraft, and you got to punish Jerry Jones, and you got to punish Daniel Snyder, because they're out here doing these things too. They acted like they were above the law, and those that are above the law have the most punitive measures for those they feel break it.
Dan, you've talked a lot about how Roger Goodell was, over punisher and took his, responsibility personally. But every time the NFL has failed here, they have failed in under punishing, because Ray Rice only got 2 games in 2014. He didn't play after that, but he only got a 2-game suspension from the league in 2014. You believe that they have failed here in under punishing. Is what you're basically saying you want Roger Goodell to double down on being the punishment commissioner? Because it didn't seem like you liked it.
No, what I would say to you, and this was so ever present after the stuff that happened with George Floyd, and the way they went from, nope, Colin Kaepernick, wrong, never mind, we were wrong about anything. We were wrong about everything, never mind. I'd just like them to stand for something other than money. Something. You have all the money in the world. You're not that popular. It doesn't affect your bottom line. And nothing affects your bottom line. All there is money pouring in from everywhere. Is the point of having money just to make more money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how they became billionaires.
Correct.
Especially, not that there are too many benevolent billionaires. If you were to find something a little bit nicer, you might find it in the NBA. But the NFL, where the average age of an NFL owner is 73.
Yeah, and they own teams.
They're old money. The NFL is old money in every sense of the word.
Okay, but what I want is change, guys. Like this is not. It happens to be through sports.
I agree with you, but it's not hard to like look at this and realize why this happens and like why it keeps happening. Like you don't have to read the CBA. You don't have to analyze Roger Goodell's like job history over the last 10 years. Like it's pretty easy to see how this continues to just happen over and over again. Even though like outside of sports, it's like, oh, we had this Me Too movement and now women feel empowered to speak up. And it's like, yeah, but there's still like a system in place, the criminal justice system, and also all of these other institutions that we look to lead us that haven't changed.
But you guys are numb to the lie, then, is what you're telling me. You're good with the idea that they've been selling us this, and it's a lie, and now it's like, never mind. You guys are just good with it.
I'm not good with it. I just see through it.
But as a business strategy or as optics, you guys are so numb to the insincerity of it, to the stand for nothing but money, that when it arrives yet again on your doorstep, we are going to spend cheering Deshaun Watson today if we're Browns fans, because we're only going to lose him for 6 games, and it feels like we just won the offseason. You're that numb. You're that sports business and billionaires and business and money in general have left you so cynical that you're numb to the lies and the insincerity, and you just expect it.
I do think from talking to folks and knowing that Roger Goodell has been out there speaking to people, wondering, never really envisioning this day would come when he took this job. It was all expansion fees and TV rights. He was trying to avoid the scenario in which, yet again, he is the bad guy and he is wrong.
I disagree with you so much there in that he invited the scenario by getting in over his head on being bigger than the law. He profited off the scenario. Profited off the lie, and gets out at the end with a parachute. And you guys are like, this is not about Goodell. And I'm like, it is about the way power leads and changes and doesn't. It's about the way power protects and money protects and doesn't. It's about who it protects and doesn't. And you guys are like, well, business. And I'm like, fuck. Like, seriously?
You just want him to show up and be a vigilante. He's got to lose his job if he's a vigilante. Not that
But he promised me he was a vigilante. And forgive me, I mentioned Ocho Cinco. That's my bad. He's never had a problem. No,
he did have a problem. He had an allegation of physical abuse.
While he was, that's right, at the end.
Dolphins.
But Pac-Man Jones and Chris Henry is where the league was out of control. The black criminals are taking over. We have to stamp this out. And it would birth Kaepernick. It would birth the idea that this league's not out of control. We're a conservative league, and we will rain down unholy punishment over the law and the players' union. We will not collectively bargain this. There is no bargain here. We will crush the player because we can't have the league looking like it's run by criminals. And now the quarterback looks like he's a criminal.
All of it is gross, Dan. It's why, like, my NFL Rob Lowe thing is really just me becoming an NFL nihilist. At this point, I like the sport too much to quit it entirely, because I love my Sundays. I love fantasy sports. I love gambling on it. I love watching the game. I love the strategy. I love playing it. I love football. I'm not going to cut it out of my life. The business of football is gross. It is what is really gross. It's really gross what's happening right now. Today's decision, the fact that someone has to apply what his owners are doing in order to decide whether or not he moves forward, all of it is disgusting. I'm no more hypocritical from going from a Browns logo to an NFL logo, but it makes me feel a little bit better about myself, so I'll just march down that path.
You mentioned feeling better about yourself. I can't help out of spewing acid that on ABC, I was delighted and surprised to see Ed Werder at Cowboys camp.
He's always there. Even when he wasn't with ESPN, he was still at Cowboys camp.
Ed Werder wasn't at ESPN. Is back at ESPN. There was something soothing about ABC. I wasn't expecting to see him on ABC. I'm used to seeing him ESPN at Cowboys camp, but now they continue to grow and they're going to be everywhere. This virus is going to be everywhere, and it is so addictive that Ed Werder soothed me by being at Cowboys camp.
It's my sports North Star. And just know that it's always going to be there. And if I ever lose my way, I just look towards Dallas Cowboys camp, knowing that mustache is going to be there.
How long was Ed Werder not at ESPN?
Yeah, I think a couple of years. It was like 3 years at least. And it was like he hit the ground running. It was like he never left.
When did that get on ABC, though? When did we start covering Cowboys camp with Ed Werder on network television?
He was gone for 2 years. I'm not sure what you were watching on it, if they had like sports highlights, but
no, it wasn't sports highlights. It was it looked like a 30 minutes NFL Sports Center.
Oh no, it was not 30 minutes. It was 3 hours. On Saturday afternoon from noon to 3 was Return to Football. Really? I actually watched a significant amount of it because it was before an MLS broadcast. But yeah, so it was like the NFL scheduled a day where from, I think it was like 8 in the morning until 7 at night, there was a different training camp practice going on that either ESPN, ABC, or NFL Network was live broadcasting from so they can present Return to Football.
And for all our blustering, we're not going to give a shit once Bills Rams kicks off on Thursday night. All that goes away, and you're just sucked into how awesome the sport is, and how great the broadcasts are, and how much money you have on one side. And ooh, I need 7 catches from Cooper Kupp tonight. It's great. It's why it is a booming business still.
I just look, man. Okay, I love it too. I love this dirty thing. I love this sinful, unethical thing. But there are some things that happen. Like, for example, I know Trump is despicable, but when Ivana Trump, for tax purposes, it appears. I'm going to say appears because I
have to extend Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. I get you.
Well, maybe it was the kids, but to bury Ivana Trump, who dies mysteriously by staircase a day before the family's depositions, and then she's buried in a pauper's grave on his golf course because of property tax exemptions and 3 different kinds of tax exemptions, and I'm not numb to it yet. I'm not numb to, you can't just keep being so appalling all the time that I get numb to your lies because every last thing is more disgraceful than the last thing that makes it feel like you're not very human. I'm surprised that I shouldn't be, I guess, that 3 hours of football would be on Saturday, the return to football, and that this will be gone 6 games into the season.
Yeah, all of it will be gone. It'll be gone the second Scott Hansen welcomes you to 7 hours of commercial-free football. You'll forget all of it, and you'll be reminded of it one Monday night broadcast that you will watch because
they don't talk about. They won't talk about that. They don't talk about this stuff there.
They'll talk about it the first game back, but they'll talk about the game once the game starts.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? As somebody who actually watched the Magic Johnson stuff on Apple and have been talking to you for a while about when this stuff gets antiseptic or when this stuff becomes slightly less of a truth because you're in partnership with Apple and Magic doesn't want his story told in the most honest way that would show him on Arsenio Hall and them celebrating that he didn't get it through gay sex. And that doesn't, you're not watching that on the documentary because Magic Johnson's in control of your product. When the NFL product is so large and so powerful and doesn't actually instigate change and lead, but uses that power only to make sure that its broadcast partners are talking only so much about Deshaun Watson, or its broadcast partners are only so comfortable, because people will tell you behind the scenes how the NFL runs these television networks. The NFL has an earned arrogance where they push everyone around. The NFL bows to no one and nothing in how it's presented and how things look. When the partnerships make it so this stuff can't be talked about honestly during a broadcast because people don't want it with their broadcast. Do you see how everything in the system conspires against the victim?
Yes.
Everything in the system.
Yes, 100%. From the broadcast partners having journalism entities, John McClain, who covered the Texans, said the broadcast partners were weighing in directly to the league on how the league should go about the Deshaun Watson thing. And who stands to gain from Deshaun Watson's return? ESPN, Monday Night Football, Halloween night, Bengals at Browns. That's going to do an amazing number. It's the whole system is rigged. It is rigged. And if you're a woman, you think it's rigged against you.
But you don't care that all of it is reality television, that all of it is insincere, that all of it is edited, that Hard Knocks, that when you get those honest moments of what do you mean Mike Zimmer was trying to fight Kirk Cousins? Like when you see these things, the real stuff spill out outside of the military school disciplines of football, and you get the real stuff. We all can't handle this beast. We can't handle how this stuff is made, what goes into making it, how it kills its players. We cannot begin to fathom what this vessel is. I will say that those players know this beast better than you, and it's why they don't love it quite as much as you do. They love the Sundays, but they don't feel like they're playing a game the rest of the time.
We like it too much. There are people that still actively smoke cigarettes, people that still turn to alcohol too much. And it tells you that it's not good for you, and you're ingesting it. I don't actually have to be on the field for the stuff that's bad for me, and I still get to have that level of enjoyment. I'm not going to stop that. I don't stop drinking. I think I'm going to stop that? I don't stop betting on it.
You don't stop drinking, but you're now taking Metamucil, and you're doing that.
Right, because I don't want to stop drinking. I don't want to stop partying. I want to live the life that I did when I was 20, and I don't want to actually sacrifice any of my own enjoyment. So that's why I'm going to slather my face in Botox. I'm going to drink as much Metamucil as I can find, causing shortages all across the world, just so I can keep it going, because I eat first.
Amin El Hassan joins us now. We're happy to have him around. He always, look at him, just the face of sunshine. Thank you. We've got basketball stuff and other stuff to get to with him, but I want to do funniest thing from the sports weekend here. Let's go around the room because there's plenty to choose from.
Hey, people, tell us what in the sport made you laugh hardest this weekend. It is a segment we call What Made You Laugh This Weekend. Ha ha ha!
Funniest thing from the sports weekend is presented by CBD MD.
Tony, do you want to start us off? Are you
I'll
involved?
go first today, Dan.
He's not involved in the show today. All right, he's not ready. Chris, what is the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
This is a drill I saw Aaron Donald doing, but I'm convinced this is not a drill. Did you guys see this video? It's him basically choking a teammate for 3 yards. He's like doing this thing where he's got his teammate is standing next to him. He puts his right arm out towards the guy's neck, and he does this thing where he just like jabs the neck. And this poor number 69, probably like an undrafted guy, is just sitting there like his neck is shaking, and it's just it's not a football drill.
I think that there are so many people in sports who the people watching, no matter their level of expertise, simply don't understand how strong those human beings are. And I wish I could put any one of us for one play, not myself, anybody other than me, for one play in front of Aaron Donald so that you guys could know what that strength feels like for no two men to be able to block
This
it.
guy's got perfect hair for this drill because his hair just like flops back as it's just such a funny, such a ridiculous drill.
Who's the guy? You say he was number 69?
Number 69, I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, so he's just a guy, and you're saying it's not a football drill. It's just Aaron Donald put his arm up and just ran him back.
Like he
3
said
yards.
something to him. It's like, hey, watch your mouth. Boom.
The $130,000 that he'll make from training camp, presuming he's not a roster NFL player.
Not worth
Well,
it.
I would say that's his entire job. His entire job is just to be on the receiving end of that from Aaron Donald.
Whittingham, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
I really should be better than this, but there was a score bug this weekend from NBC Sports Philadelphia, which shows Phillies nothing, Pirates nothing, and the logos show the Phillies P and the Pirates P. So it's Phillies P 0, Pirates P, and it looks like poop.
The score was poop.
It's funny because he said poop.
It was really funny.
That's every Pirates game.
I was
though.
just going to make that joke. I was scanning my brain for what's the Pirates joke that can be made here.
On the subject, by the way, of Aaron Donald, do you see that he said that he will be in Los Angeles as long as Sean McVay is still there?
All of a sudden, from retirement to that.
That, like, Sean McVay is worth whatever salary you're paying him purely on the basis of he'll keep Aaron Donald around for another year.
I feel like that was the fakest like retirement thing we've ever heard. Nobody ever actually thought Aaron Donald was retiring, did they? He just kind of threatened it because he knows he's valuable. Like, I felt like that was one of those ones that nobody actually thought he was retiring.
I think, though, that McVay might be the kind of coach, because we're seeing so much of this change now. I read some stuff yesterday about, hey, no more two-a-days in football. Those seemed inhumane. I'm guessing McVay just tells Aaron every once in a while, you know what? You don't have to do anything today. Just go over there and rest. You're excellent. I'm going to treat you like a human being. You had to have had different rules for Shaq, right?
For Shaq, for Steve Nash, for Grant Hill, like when you're a vet who's been around that long, yeah, you guys don't have to do everything every single time. But I like the idea of Sean McVay telling him, just go over there, just choke somebody. Just choke somebody a couple of times, you're fine.
That's fine. You've done your work for the week. You mentioned the Pirates. Mike and I were talking about this last week. O'Neal Cruz has the biggest infield arm you've ever seen, correct? Period. Like
I've never seen.
It took one throw from their 6'7" shortstop for you to say that's the biggest infield arm. Not a shortstop, not a third baseman. I've never seen somebody who throws the ball like that.
To be fair, it's taken 2 throws because he went viral with a throw from a couple of weeks ago. That also made me say I've never seen that before.
His first throw in the big leagues. He threw it 100 miles an hour to first base.
99 miles per hour, which seems like really unsafe for the first baseman. I feel for them. Yeah, he's an incredible talent. Got him in the beginning of July, plus 550, and I'll rookie of the year.
Jessica, what What are you doing again?
Gambling again.
Jessica, what was the funniest thing from the sports weekend?
Ferrari putting on the hard tires on Charles Leclerc's car, Dan. They lost another race with strategy. It was so sad that it was funny.
You are a bit of a coward in that
Correct.
the
Why,
F1
though?
the F1 minute is not appearing today because your classes in Hungarian over the weekend did not go well.
Yeah, I hired a Hungarian tutor and she fired me weirdly. She was like, this is not going to work.
The optics of this are very much like Greg Cody had a bomb, like amazing back in my day, and then he disappears for 6 months.
Exactly.
She's
all
scared
the
of the
now
applause
it's,
you got for the
now
French
it's
one.
summer break and we're going to come back after the Belgian Grand Prix and maybe I'll speak Belgian, Dan. We'll see.
It's either Flemish or French. So.
I don't know. I like Belgian.
I just called something that was cool bomb.
That was such an asshole correction. It was so bad.
Well, I looked it up because I was like, oh, what's next on the calendar? They're taking a month off. And I was like, Belgium. What do they speak there? Yeah, it's either French or Flemish.
Yeah, that was the joke, was that it was not an actual language. But thank you for explaining it, Chris.
Yeah. I thought your F1 minute last week was pretty fat.
With a PH.
What would the kids say today? Lit is even past date, right? Like what would it be called? Your F1 minute.
Even if you say fleek, you're
I think it's fire.
Ancient.
I think fire is the one that I hear most often.
Fire has stood the test of time.
Yeah,
fire's been good for a long time.
Are we turnt?
Are we hyphy?
Oh, no, we're not turned
Kids,
anymore.
are
We
we
haven't
hyphy?
been hyphy in like 10 years.
We haven't been hyphy? I think the Bay Area still gets hyphy.
Is turnt expired? Turnt
Gas.
is expired.
Gas is what we say
it's
nowadays.
Gas is not
Super
as good
gas.
as fire.
No, super gas better than fire.
Super gas is better than fire?
That's right, Dan.
Mike Ryan.
Poop for me.
What was
It was a poop.
Poop?
Yeah, poop. He took my poop thing. The poop was it was really funny because again it said poop on the screen for a while.
Amin, what was
was
the
funny.
funniest thing
Poop,
from the
poop.
sports weekend?
Poop.
Keith Hernandez living out all of our nightmares by mispronouncing Jazz Chisholm's name the bad way.
Yes. Keith Hernandez, it was funny that he called him.
Jizz Chasm. Which would be my porn star name, coincidentally.
Chasm.
Yeah, Jizz Chasm.
Robbie Anderson is changing his name, and I want to do this. I want to go with Robbie Anderson, who is changing his name from Robbie with a Y legally to Robbie IE. Because he likes how it looks, his signature looks better, and he's right.
He's right.
But it is a lot of way to go on a name change that will be exactly the same sounding name.
It's like if you spelled your name like DANNIE and then switched to like DANNY. Like the Y looks better in that case. Robbie's the exact opposite of that.
But Stugotz has been absolutely right about this. No receiver who's just kind of a decent receiver gets more attention than Robbie Anderson. And he's in Carolina as well. Doesn't make sense how much I know about Robbie Anderson.
There's actually a real life example of this guy. Scottie Pippen actually spells his name Scotty. And I don't know why everyone spelled it IE, but he spells his name TTY. And so now his son, Scottie Pippen Jr., does it with the Y.
Jessica, so the audience knows the nature of your cowardice. The expectations of your French F1 minute, which got universal applause in an era where nothing around here gets
Especially
universal
if I do it, yeah.
applause. Nothing gets universal applause. And the pressure of that made it so that this week would be a disappointment if you did it. So you're just brand management protection, load management.
Exactly. Load management, brand management, load management, poop joke. Dan, I can't learn Hungarian in 7 days, all right? So we're going to take a break with the F1 minute and we'll be back. There's 9 races left. And to be honest, Hungaroring, not a lot of action. It was a technical race, a lot of strategy. You can listen to a breakdown this week on DNF with Spencer Hall. We're also going to have a little surprise in the podcast feed for DNF fans. I won't say what it is, but it's going to be
I need to know.
big.
Tell me right now.
I can't go with Robbie Anderson, though, because, again, as mentioned previously, in what was billed as the last match of his life, Mike Ryan was invited to this. Mike Ryan did not go. Ric Flair wrestling in a t-shirt to cover up that the body at 73 isn't going to look good when everything's gone to flab and it's been a hard life. He looked to be having a heart attack in his last match in front of his children. And to be fair, he had a lot of photos where he was a deeply, deeply unhealthy shade of red while tying his shoes. He was in no condition to do this, face covered in blood. He faked a heart attack and then Three Stooges style emerged from it to eye gouge.
I've never seen that move in a wrestling ring. Ever.
He goes out pioneering. He was faking a heart attack. We thought that he might actually die, and then the next move was just to poke his opponent to gouge his eye.
Did it make him the dirtiest player in the game for nothing?
Chris,
man.
did you pay for this?
I did. I don't know why. I just kind of did it, and no one's talking about the fact that he won at the end with the brass knuckles. I mean, geez, that's cheating. I thought.
How'd you get that through airport security, Rick?
How does it show up on your credit card bill? Is your wife going to look at the bill at the end of the month?
How much was it? How much?
34 and change.
What else was around the spectacle? Was it a remembrance of his career?
Was it a lot of video? You actually would have gotten a kick out of it because it was done by Jim Crockett Promotions, so it looked very much in the style of like 1980s territory wrestling broadcast. You had Tony Schiavone calling the matches, so it kind of looked like what you were hoping it would look like. All of it was a bit of a spectacle.
You paid for it as well? Or
yeah. I loved every second.
They had way too many matches, though. There was like a long card. It was one of those things I tuned in at the start, and then I realized there was a lot of matches before Rick, and I kind of, I came back to it.
Was it sad?
I mean, the Rick part was just, yes, of course. He's ridiculously old, and he's throwing this guy who's like in his prime, and he's throwing him very slowly to the turnbuckle, and then this guy's sprinting to the turnbuckle. And Ric Flair's slaps at this age obviously are not the same slaps, but the way that they're reacting to these slaps as if they're still strong slaps was actually comical.
I'm happy he got to have that moment. It meant a lot to him. He wanted to go again. We had enough nostalgia to make us feel like we were watching Ric Flair. To me, in my mind, his last match is always going to be the one that he had against Shawn Michaels, because then he could really go. It was sad that he looked 73, but it was also amazing that he's doing this with a pacemaker. No one's ever done that. He gave us laughs. He made you care. You don't have to do a bunch of flips to tell a good story. And
he got body slammed and he was bleeding.
Yeah,
he
had the juice. The juice was flowing. It was $34 well spent. I encourage anybody to go do that.
I don't think the internet's going to agree with that. Put it on the poll, please, Chris Cody at LeBatardShow. Was Ric Flair's last match $34 well spent? Because you might think that to honor him, but you were at one of his big birthday parties. You're friends with him. He introduced a DJ set of yours. You were going to like that no matter what.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Ric Flair fan. But I also have standards for him, and I know what he overcame to get that. He should be dead. It's amazing that he is doing this with a pacemaker.
His family thought he would be okay dying in the ring on this, correct?
I kind of thought, when I read about it, I'm like, what are you doing, man? This is crazy. You should not be in that ring. But he got checked out by doctors. They said he was all right. I'm happy he got to have that moment. He was surrounded by friends. It was really cool that Mick Foley, The Undertaker, and Bret Hart were ringside, and you kind of had like a mini Mount Rushmore of wrestling there on that side. It was really cool to know that Rick got to be surrounded by friends and colleagues, people that he has worked with for so long, careers that he has made, and he got to perform maybe for one last time. I doubt it. I have my doubts always with Rick when it comes to that, because if this was profitable, they'll try to run it back. But I'm happy he got to have that moment.
How do you navigate your childhood emotions and the moral conundrums with him, as we've had to do a new math with Chris Jericho's and a bunch of other people?
I told you when this was relitigated in the public a year ago. I knew Rick well after that incident. I judged Rick based off the merits of when I became friends with him. I do think if I find out that Motley Crue was rude on an airplane, kind of like the cost of doing business, not to rationalize it. It was bad. He's gotten severely punished for it. There's a reason why he's doing this card on Triller as opposed to doing it with AEW. I would love to see Ric Flair get the send-off that, say, Sting is having, because I think that just his promo ability, he has so much to give to the game. Part of me is sad that he had to do this independently because he was basically treated like a pariah. I think he served his time, and I know the man who he is now, and he's still something that I really enjoyed from my childhood and my youth, and I've explained that.
But it was also like that. Mike had that feeling, but then you can also be less emotional about it and just like it was like funny because it was so ridiculous because he was so old. So it's like both ends of the spectrum.
Faked a heart attack in front of his
but
kids.
That was great.
And then
that made me laugh
gouged.
out loud.
That was
because
incredible.
If I'm being like, I saw it was such a ridiculously overacting. I was like, he's clearly like he's going. I saw it coming from a mile away. It wasn't. And this is probably better. It was not so like it wasn't a moment where I'm like, oh my god, he's actually having a heart attack.
There were two of those moments where I was
There were dude, when he laid down on the mat for 5 straight minutes, I was like, is this a thing or is he just resting?
But he really turned on. Oh god! Oh god! Oh god! He really turned it on.
And then
I knew that the gouge was coming. I wanted it so bad.
Now, Mike, I want to ask you, was it less or more convincing than Al Pacino in 2 for the Money when he has the heart attack in the airport to scare Matthew McConaughey?
Less convincing because I had watched 2 for the Money 5 times, but then when I rewatched it for Cinephobe, I was once again surprised by it, and I thought there was a chance that Al Pacino might die. But it was all just a huge ruse to get Matthew McConaughey to sleep with his wife again.
I've got a couple of questions on this. One, what is the best movie heart attack that you have seen? The best performed movie heart attack? Is it from The Godfather? It's got to be somebody with arm pain. It's got to be somebody who falls on the ground without a lot of histrionics. But also, you mentioned Al Pacino. Is this a real thing, or was I fooled by the internet? Michael Mann is saying a Heat 2 is coming?
Right, the novel is coming. I think the novel drops this week. So that he wrote a novel, Heat 2, and hopefully that means we get a film. I don't know if the characters are the same. I don't know if we get to run it back with the original cast.
Oh, it can't be the original class.
No,
it can't be
no,
80-year-old De Niro and 80-year-old Pacino running around.
I don't think Val Kilmer can really convince me as an assassin right now.
Sizemore with his priapism.
Hank Azaria. He's got a great ass.
Yes, Hank Azaria with a role just under Pacino being yelled at by Pacino.
So I found all sorts of lists. People have done this before. Heart attacks in cinema.
The best, you've got a list of the best heart attacks in cinema?
Wow, their number 5 is super strong.
All right, well, how many do you have there? Do you have 10? Do you have 10? Can we do a top 10 list, or you can, or do we need to do a top 5 list? Because which are the ones you're thinking of? You've seen an awful lot of bad ones on Cinephobe, haven't you, Amin?
I have. The one I'm thinking about wasn't quite a heart attack, but it was someone convulsing. It was Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed when Drago knocks him down. He falls face down, and then he begins convulsing and twitching. And the real-life trivia behind that is the on-set doctor actually rushed into the ring because he thought Carl Weathers was actually convulsing and dying. That's how convincing of an acting job that Carl Weathers did. That's why we named our Ass Off Award for those who act their ass off after Carl Weathers.
Wait a minute. Did they ruin the scene because the doctor was so convinced that the scene got...
If you watch it, the first time when he falls and he starts twitching, it's a second and then it cuts because I believe the doctor had rushed in. And so every other shot is like a bunch of people in the ring. There's one where he's twitching again, but it doesn't quite look the same as the original twitch. I think 100% he was so convincing they ruined the shot.
I want to do some basketball stuff here with Amin, and we'll get Mike as soon as Mike puts together his top 10 list of movie heart attacks.
I'm going to take in all the data that the internet is giving me right now and put together my own top 5 because I'm not liking some of these.
Okay, very good. You can take your time with that. I thought you would go to a file cabinet and just pull it out. I'm sorry, we're making it up on the fly.
This is a very niche part of cinema.
I understand. Bill Russell, before our time, and we talked to Howard Bryant about this earlier, your thoughts here as somebody who cares about the game very deeply.
Well, I said this, I had to go on the radio live yesterday after I was done with my show because the unfortunate news broke. And what I said was, basketball, we are gifted and cursed by being the baby sport in terms of pro sports. Football, baseball, and hockey have all been around over 100 years or just about. And meanwhile, basketball, we just turned 75, pro basketball. And so for us, we don't have the concept of legends who lived a long time ago who none of us saw play. Like baseball can talk about Babe Ruth and football can talk about, the guys that played in the black and white pro football era and all that stuff. But basketball, our legends walk among us. They're living history. But as a result, we have to watch them pass away. I looked this up, and of the top 75 players in NBA history, 11 of them have died in the last 10 years. That's 15% of the greatest players to ever play the game have passed away in the last 10 years. So when you talk about Bill Russell, who the Finals MVP trophy is named after, you're talking about the greatest winner in professional sports history. You're talking about the first black head coach in professional sports history. You're talking about a man who made an indelible impact on, if you just look at his civil rights track record, you would say, what a great life this man has led. And then, oh, by the way, he's also the greatest winner in professional sports history. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. While doing this, he also found the time to play basketball better than anyone ever in the history of the game.
Where will he be regarded more excellently? I mean, like in terms of memory and icon, is it greatest winner ever, or is his work and his way of being, can it be comparable in terms of excellence when you hear people talk about the human that he was and the way he protected his dignity in the face of some pretty awful racism?
Yeah, in a weird way, both. And I'm not saying that as a cop-out, but it's like it's rare when you get someone who's so excellent at both that he is appropriately regarded, I would say. We had a caller who was saying, oh, this guy never got his just due. I'm like, nah, I wouldn't say that, because first of all, the Finals MVP trophy is named after him. Second of all, anytime this guy walked in a room, it didn't matter the age of the players in the room. Everybody gravitated towards him. Everybody knew who he was, and everybody sought him out and tried to hear things, stories and philosophies and all that stuff. So he's one of those guys where I think he was properly regarded. And
this is crazy. I don't think this has ever happened before. Amin is alleging it is the highest form of flattery and eulogy you could give a sports figure. You're alleging here publicly. I can't believe you're saying it. Bill Russell is above overrated. He cannot be touched by the smear of overrated. You're not allowed. I didn't know there was such a thing. You're saying that I'm not allowed to call him overrated. No one is.
You can't. I mean, it's dude played 13 years in the league. He went to the finals 12 times. He won 11 of them. In closeout games in his life, including college and the NCAA tournament, including the Olympics, and including closeout games and game sevens in the NBA, he was 21-0. He never lost a closeout game. So when you start kind of going through his track record of success, you realize, I'm pretty sure in high school he didn't lose any closeout games either, by the way. I just don't know what the number is, including the high school games. But
he was 4-4 in high school. They just don't use those. Like it was, they just started the counting when he got to the first of the 21. It was unbelievable.
He lost to this guy named Stubby Griskin.
It's an underregarded part of the history of Bill Russell. 2-6 in closeout games, 8th grade through high school.
Stubby Griskin's like, I had his number.
Locked him down to the post.
You want to hear how underrated he was? He was like a world-class high jumper, and this was pre-Fosbury. What's the Fosbury flop?
Flop, yes.
Yeah. So he literally used to just dive headfirst above the bar. He was the first person to clear 7 feet, I want to say, in high jump. One of the guys that he competed against in high school was this dude named Johnny, and Johnny was talking about, oh, this guy's great, whatever. And then Johnny went on to have a career in music. His name's Johnny Mathis.
This dude named Johnny.
The dude, he really had like a mythical level life. And again, I think the cool thing was he was around. You go to All-Star weekends, you go to the NBA Finals. He was at all these events. The players were always talking to him, and he was up to date on the current game. He wasn't like a lot of, jaded, retired guys talking about, oh, the game is terrible, whatever. He was still very up to date with the current game and was engaging with players. Brian Scalabrine told me a story about him sitting next to him on a flight, and for a cross-country flight. And Bill Russell just told him stories about like mind games with Wilt Chamberlain and stuff like that.
Jessica, I wanted to talk to you about
guys, real quick. I need a ruling on this. Does it have to be a heart attack, or can it just simply be cardiac arrest?
It's best acted. It doesn't have to end in death. It just has to be.
Can we just say your heart stopped?
The best portrayal of the acting. We are, how believable.
Oh, there's great acting in the top 5. I just need to know what the rules are.
I'm telling you what the rules are. Please stop interrupting me while I'm trying to tell you what the rules are.
I asked you a very direct question.
The rules are, and these are all the rules.
I'm going to say it's a yes. It's a yes.
There doesn't have to be a death.
You just opened the door to the Mission Impossible franchise.
No, I want that out of here. That's another one of the rules.
I have a top 5 just self-defibrillation.
No. Okay.
Number 5, Casino Royale.
Okay. Number 4.
Number 4, Ethan Hunt in one of the Mission Impossible movies. I believe that was Mission Impossible 3.
Let's clear out this category.
Self-defibrillation. I think it's the second time he did that in that franchise. So let's just say Ethan Hunt has 2 of them.
All right, just close out whatever the Mission Impossible
whatever
category.
happened in Dumb and Dumber count? It was rat poison, but his heart stopped. Can we just do that? Because that would be number 1 for me.
Pills are good.
Pills are good.
Good.
We will get to the top 5 heart attacks, cardiac arrests.
Shit, I burned through some good ones.
In the history of the
Why
movies.
did I do that? Now we need 2 more.
But Jessica won't shut up about the awkwardness of the HBO Max show, The Rehearsal.
Oh.
And
have you seen it?
It is so strange and wonderful. It's got to be one of the strangest things that's ever been allowed to be put on television.
What is their budget? That's the only question I have.
I was wondering the same thing.
What is their budget?
How are they paying all these extras? All these
Extras,
volunteers.
how are they transporting a 1-to-1 replica of a Brooklyn bar cross country to a warehouse in Oregon?
I was thinking the same thing last night, and apparently the remaining episodes get more and more elaborate. Dan, have you tried to explain this show to someone who hasn't watched it yet?
I thought How To with John Wilson was the weirdest show that HBO was trying to put out there, and I enjoyed the weirdness of it. But I don't understand how this person stays in character. You guys are marveling at the budget. He cannot ruin a scene by laughing, and the awkwardness is off the charts. Like I don't know how I'd explain it to a person other than to say that it's a show unlike anything I've seen on television.
It's times like this I rue the day that the Chinese invented gunpowder.
That was the hardest I've ever laughed watching any show on TV. I laughed out loud in that scene, but it is impossible to explain the series of stunts and lies that unravel from the beginning of the show, which just starts as you're a person who has to say something uncomfortable, so we're going to rehearse it. That's the premise of the rehearsal, right? Mm-hmm. But then it just becomes this web of insanity, and there's only 3 episodes out so far, and one has gotten more convoluted than the other, and somehow there's, I think, maybe 5 left. Is that right? How many episodes are there total?
I think there's 6 total.
6 total, so there's 3 left. Somehow it's going to get worse from all of the reviews that I've read. It gets even more complicated and complex. And Nathan Fielder, who is the creator and the producer of the show and also stars in it, you said something interesting, Dan, which is how does he stay in character? The more I watch Nathan For You and this show, the more I wonder, like, how much of this is a character and how much of it is just him playing himself, but just deadpan. I don't know. Like, I would love to get inside
He's got to know there's got to be such extraordinary pressure on them going to these lengths and spending. He can't blow a scene. He cannot fall out of character and ruin the authenticity of a scene. So there's a lot at stake in him not falling out of character.
So shout out to Cinephobe producer Anthony Mays, who pointed this out. We love this show, and there's a part in the latest episode where an old man craps himself in the woods, and the non-actor, the guy who they're doing this whole thing for, has to help him clean himself. And all that's well and good, and then Mays pointed out, wait a second, so they had to have an actor be okay with shitting himself, right? And with the hopes that this dude would go along with it, which he did. That is such like, what do you pay someone to do that? How do you get someone to shit on you? Now, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take a shit on yourself.
I don't think he actually I think we could maybe analyze the scene. I don't know if he actually shit on himself or if he needed help changing his diaper. It is up for debate, Amin. I'm not sure if there was shit in the diaper. However, there have been 2 times. I thought you were going to say this other part of that episode, which is one of the 2 times I think I've seen Nathan Fielder act like Nathan Fielder and kind of be out of character. There was one scene in this most recent episode where the person, which I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often, one of the people who is not an actor says something anti-Semitic, and Nathan Fielder's like, oh, what? Wait, hold on, wait a second. And he kind of has to backtrack for a second, and then he comes back into character, and he's like, well, I guess if that is something you would actually say, then I guess you can say it. But he has this moment where he's like producing it mid-conversation.
No, the look on his face was, it is rare for you to be able to pull off that was awkward anti-Semitism, and somehow it's funny.
Yeah, and then there was another time in Nathan For You where this is, I think, one of the most hilarious episodes of the show that exists. I think it's in the first season where they do this gasoline rebate. And to get the rebate, you have to like hike a mountain and do all this crazy shit. And at the end of the scene, he's talking to the guy who owns the gas station. And the guy who owns the gas station says a comment as an aside that he drinks his grandson's pee. And Nathan Fielder exits character for a second. And he's like, wait, I'm sorry. What did whose pee do you drink? And then he like kind of just snaps out of it for a second. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he kind of comes back to it. And it is one of the, it is so funny because you don't know, like there's so many absurd things that happen in these shows and most of it involving real people and it's unpredictable, but somehow he is able to navigate like 99.9% of it and remain the show version of himself. But there's like that 0.1% where he just is like, what did I
don't think this show is for everybody. I think a lot of people will be put off by just how awkward and uncomfortable it is.
But more than that, it's just strange. But I'm going to disagree with you, Jessica. I think the anti-Semitic part, he stayed in character because he says to him, maybe you want to rethink that. And then the guy says, well, that's how me and my brother talk to each other. And he's like, on second thought, go ahead. If that's authentic to your
I agree. But there is like a split second right when he first hears it that he kind of like is like, whoa,
that's right.
Wait a second.
That we need to stop. Oh, well, do we? Do we need to stop?
All right. I just need to clean something up from earlier. Rogue Nation was the second time Ethan Hunt had to have his heart restarted because obviously in Rogue Nation he drowns. He's dead for a very long time.
Spoiler alert.
He's dead for about like 7%.
I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead. What was that thing underwater that he was spinning around?
That was like super secure, man. That was incredible. I
thought he was dead. He was dead.
I thought he was dead. Yeah,
he drowned.
He's done a couple of times.
He clearly drowned.
Remember in Mission Impossible 3, he had the explosion in his head, and he needed to die in order to live. Because he was defibrillated twice. Defibrillated once to deactivate the bomb that was in his head.
We're not doing this.
Defibrillated to revive himself. That was in Mission Impossible 3. What a great franchise. Quick question. I have 6 on my list right now, but one's from a TV show. Will you allow the one from the TV show? If so, then this one can go straight to the OLI.
You could just take it out, then you have a nice 5.
Depends. Is the show Mission Impossible?
No.
Okay.
All right, so OLI, big dying on the Peloton.
Hold on a second.
I think we can continue to do this. You do one, and then we talk, and then you do one. Is that?
Yeah. I'm just spackling.
OLI.
OLI is big dying on the Peloton. It's very dramatic. Like, I've never really been able to telegraph a heart attack for that long in a show.
But did we see him have it, though? I don't think we did.
Yes, he fell in the didn't he fall in the shower like clutching at his arm?
Yes, the left arm starts going. As soon as he was sitting in that window frame, sipping on a coffee with white lights around him, you knew this guy was having a heart attack.
It was a close-up. It was very close-up, and I did think that he portrayed that well. It did feel like Big died there.
Well, his career certainly did after that.
That is correct.
That's true.
But that's on OLI.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 5.
Number 5, Vegas Vacation.
Oh, yes.
I won.
Wasn't that the PE coach in Greece? I think it was a PE coach in Greece.
Wait a minute.
I think you're right.
Sid Caesar?
Yeah.
Think of that name.
I don't know if it's right or not.
Well, whatever.
It's right.
His performance in that movie was pretty fat.
Number 4.
I'm sorry, just trying to keep us younger after the Sid Caesar reference. A lot of heavy lifting. Number 4, Jurassic Park, after the kid gets electrocuted and he's not breathing, and Sam Neill has to bring him back to life. Not really a heart attack, but it's actually hard to find a heart attack.
The rare kid heart attack.
Yeah. So it's the only kid heart attack I've seen in cinema, and therefore, on that merit alone, it's top 5.
And it was realistic. Was it realistic? I don't remember the heart attack you're talking about.
He was taking his sweet ass time getting down this electric fence, and also you don't have to climb over it. There's room for you to climb through it. It's like the Titanic thing where there's plenty of room for Jack. Just climb through. Why are we climbing over? Obviously, Lord Dern then turns on the electric fence. Kid goes flying.
Fell like what looked like 40 or 50 feet.
Yeah, I don't.
Great
snag by Sam Neill. Great snag.
I think
That's
you're
a web gem.
I think you're doing this differently than I am, though, because we were trying to assess how great the acting was, not whether it was a kid was involved. How well was the heart attack? How convincing was the portrayal of the heart attack?
Like his hair was jumping off of his skull.
But that's not acting.
They put those kids through quite an experience. 1 second a T-Rex is trying to eat you. Next second you got the Jell-O thing. The Raptors in the kitchen was amazing.
Ass on.
Number 3.
Number 3, we're going to go with Randy the Ram in The Wrestler.
Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
Ass on what?
That's a cinephobe joke.
Cinephobe term.
Yeah. Number 2, this, I'm calling an audible. I'm switching number 1 and number 2.
What do you can't do that.
I'm switching number 1 and number 2.
You can't do that.
Because I was reading it out loud. I saw the 2 next to it, and I'm like,
you can't do that. 2 is where 2 is. If you want to, go ahead and read 1 first. Read what was 1 first.
I had time to marinate on this
2.
decision.
You can't just change it.
Number 2 is now Vito Corleone in the garden after frolicking with a grandson, falling over in the tomato tree. And number 1, I think justifiably this was the right decision.
Hold on, I think Amin had some Godfather commentary here.
No, how do you? I want to hear what number 1 is. What this Johnny Come Lately number 1 that overtook Marlon freaking Brando acting in one of the greatest movies of all time.
Adrenaline Shot, Pulp Fiction. Uma Thurman takes a needle directly to the heart, courtesy of one
acting.
Vinny Vega.
That's not her acting.
She acted her ass off in that movie. You want to talk
ass off?
Man.
Ass off
I
for
believe
me.
she was dead. I thought like literally Quentin Tarantino had gone too far. You killed an actress just to make the scene more believable. Here comes the needle right into the breastplate. She pops up. Her eyes get all wide, and I said, "Oh my God, that's acting."
You're agreeing that Godfather gets knocked out.
Yes, I was worried he was going to come with another Mission Impossible.
What an appearance by Amin Al-Hassan. He has said that Bill Russell, he has announced that one athlete and one athlete only is allowed to exist in a plane above overrated. And he has also said Marlon Brando has been dethroned in the last 5 seconds. Greatest heart attack scene is Pulp Fiction. We're 25 years late to this conversation, but put it on the poll at LeBatard Show, Chris Cody. Better heart attack scene. Godfather, Marlon Brando dying, better acting in a heart attack scene, or Uma Thurman in Pulp Fiction. Look at how happy you. What were you so happy about? You're just happy about revealing this shocking information to the audience.
I just think it's a tremendous list by Mike. I was scared at first. He kept saying Ethan Hunt, Ethan Hunt, Ethan Hunt. I was like, oh man, is this going to be one of those things? But then he really rounded it out there. I like those last 2, Mike. Good job.
Way to go, Mike.
We got to be more positive here.
Hell yeah. Bling, bling.
It bums me out that Stugotz had to leave today and could not get to these Sylvester Stallone stories. He's in the news for a couple of different things. August brings us on Amazon Prime a Sylvester Stallone superhero movie called Samaritan.
So he's starring as a superhero.
I'm superhero, and Samaritan, the title of the movie would suggest that he is somebody who is going to tell stories about a conflicted America by coming to the rescue. He's going to tell important gun safety stories by being someone who arrives as a good Samaritan.
He's 76 years old. Never seen a 76-year-old superhero. Not to be ageist, it's just not something that you don't really see every day. He's been very public on social media. He's actually a really great follow on Instagram about what I think he's described close to the whoring out of these great characters that he created.
Oh, Mike, this is a different story, though. These are two different stories that Sylvester Stallone is in the news for. This month features a 76-year-old superhero. I don't feel like we have seen many of those, although in Nobody with Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd seems, while not a superhero, the oldest action figure I've ever seen, and Clint Eastwood is still out here making Westerns. But Sylvester Stallone's quotes on this, the Rocky film family, Creed 2 has a Russian father and son, and now that is being made into the next of the Rocky movies.
The Russian father and son.
The
little respect on the name.
That is
correct. The Russian Dan.
You mean the Dragos?
Yeah,
do you mean the Dragos?
Do you mean the family that ended the Cold War?
I don't know if I mean that, because this is Creed 2, which I have not seen.
You didn't know that in Creed 2, the crux of the storyline was that it was Drago's son going up against Creed's son? Imagine all the drama going into the fight. The man in the corner of your opponent killed your father right after a James Brown concert.
I appreciate that you guys have been following this through the Creeds. I have not even seen the first Creed.
Oh, what? The first Creed is amazing. The first Creed is great. You'll cry, you'll laugh. It is a perfect movie. But then Creed 2, Sly Stallone kind of puts his hand up. He was so deeply embedded in the making of Creed. It had his blessing. And Creed 2, that kind of gets diluted a little bit more. And now they're just running off with this franchise without his hands all over it, and he's not for it.
Here's the quote. This pathetic producer and his moronic vulture children are once again picking clean the bones of another character I created. Parasites. That is strong Stallone right there. I'm here for 76-year-old action hero Stallone calling people pathetic and parasites on social media because he's going to keep up in the modern age.
He is an artist when it comes to Rocky. He is deeply protective of it, which
Andy
is weird because Rocky 5 happened. but I guess he's learned from Rocky.
Of his own work.
Yeah, I guess he's learned from Rocky 5. And Rocky Balboa, which I actually thought was pretty good. And he doesn't want people that have equity within the character, because they were part of the production process and making it several years ago, to continue making money off of this as if it's not up to his standard. I respect the artistry in that. He cares deeply.
It's not just that, though, Mike. He doesn't make money off of this. He does not own some of the things that he wants to own here. And he has asked those, he wants ownership of this stuff, and he doesn't have it, because if you go back to the 1970s and where he was in life and the writing of this script, he lost the ability to, he's noticing what's happening in brand management these days, and owning that and not giving it away to the studios and the industry would be a great thing to own. You're making it creative. I think he just wants to own Rocky. Yeah, he could protect it and file it under that. I think he wants to make money off the character.
Yeah, but he created these characters, and now they're going off in a direction in which he's helpless. Like, he does not have creative control. He's not even a hired actor in these films. I feel for him, because it's the greatest thing he's ever done, outside of maybe The Specialist.
The first 10 minutes of cliffhanger.
Yeah, you could put together, if we were putting together a 2-hour movie of just
this
the
is
best
a good
Stallone
show right
scenes.
here. This is a good show. The 2-hour movie of Stallone would have how much Cobra in it?
Oh, well, we're lighting a match. We're lighting a match from Cobra.
You're going to have Expendables in it, correct?
I would have maybe the Spirit in the Sky type. No, the Wanderer. The Wanderer scene as they're lowering in their descent towards whatever Death Island the Expendables were headed to.
How about Fat Stallone trying to win an Oscar in Copland?
Copland? No Fat Stallone.
No Fat Stallone.
No. We definitely have the scene in Judge Dredd where he yells at Armando Asante, "You betrayed the law!" And Asante just goes right back at him. Yeah. Yeah. There's excellent dubstep remixes of this scene. Every time I go on YouTube, I get a new suggested dubstep remix of "Let me try the law." Let me try the law.
Demolition Man? Anything
Of course.
From, how much from Demolition
the entire
Man?
90-minute cut of Demolition Man is in this 2-hour film. Yes. Yes, it is.
No, you can't have 90 minutes
Yes,
of
it is.
Demolition Man and then 30 minutes of the Rockies.
They call him the Demolition Man.
I think Wesley Snipes turned 60. You talk about your action heroes. Harrison Ford just turned 80. Wesley Snipes is 60.
I was watching the Ric Flair last match too, and it's just like, I will do anything in my power to not get old now. Getting old looks like it sucks. It's got to suck so much because your brain is still like, hey, yeah, I could do this in my sleep. And your body's just like, no. And that shit's already happening. When you pull an all-nighter at mid-30s, feels a hell of a lot different. I could have strolled into work. I had when I was 20. Strolled into work, just straight from the club.
Stugotz still does, and he's feeling it. He does. The number of conversations I've had with him recently where I'm like, Stugotz, you can't go like that anymore. You're not 24.
When I have a big partying weekend, I do my wash shake, as I've told you, Athletic Greens, Metamucil, Liquid IV, Ginkgo, and I just do that. Just do it.
Jessica,
keeps,
did you just throw up?
keeps.
Jessica, what was that sound? I heard it through a soundproof glass. Did you just throw up into your hands?
Oh, that sounds
It's so
so
gelatinous by the
gross.
end.
It's
You're just
so
drinking
gross.
a slug.
Oh God!
But I can't do it.
It helps you?
I have-
Why can't you just do these things separately?
I got my
Why do they have to-
KT tape
Wait, you drink
on
it
the
all
back.
at the same time?
Yeah.
No.
What? You want me to extend this experience and go one by one?
Do you
No, it's all
blend it?
going in
Do
the
you
same
blend
hole.
it? Is
Have
it a
you
blend?
thrown up?
Yeah,
Have you,
all in a green Flanny's cup.
have you gagged? Oof.
No,
Oof.
I know. It
That
does
bucket,
work.
that Flanagan's bucket.
Yeah.
I love the idea that you're like Professor Snape mixing a potion that's
Yeah.
going to cure you of your hangover.
That's the only reason I'm here today. I went to Swedish House Mafia on Friday. If it weren't for the wash shake, I would not be sitting here right now. I'd be lying here.
This is local, but I don't believe that there's been a better cup.
Clap it up for me, by the way. 2 hearty BMs over the weekend. I felt like I could do anything. I'm telling you. Solid, like full evacuation. I haven't-
Congratulations.
I felt like I was 17 again.
I'm the opposite. I'm getting done with a week of vacation. The opposite for me right now, Clive.
By the way, if you're
You're going to start
watching-
using the Clives too.
Well, I did this thing where I thought I had a good BM, and then I got up and there was one little pebble in the
Okay,
toilet.
No,
I
you're
don't want to talk
constipated.
about this.
You're
Come
constipated.
on.
But do you
Come
ever feel
on.
like you've done
yeah.
well?
Yeah,
You
and
ever,
it's just like
you ever feel like you've had a good
Come
one?
on.
No, the
You
two
look
pebbles
down
are just-
and you're like, where'd it go? Do I have one of those flushers that does it automatically?
my
What
pebbles,
happened here?
my pebbles just spell out F and U right after. That's what it means.
By the way, if you watch the first 10 minutes of the show today on YouTube, the local hour, you will see
It's not any better right now.
You will see Chris Cody confronting his vacation on camera. He looked at the camera and goes, "Whew, I'm wearing vacation right now."
My eyes are bloated.
You have come back not rested, but it's deeply unpleasant to imagine you.
Oh, shut up, Dan. You've been there.
Yeah,
You stand
yeah,
up.
come
You
on.
feel like
Look,
you've
it's
had a
happening
good
to all
one.
of us.
Listen to
You
me.
ever see a picture of J-Lo from her wedding and just say, fuck you? How is this even possible? You see Pharrell just flaunting it? Yeah, of course you're happy, asshole. You look the same as you did when you were 20. I hate it with these people. What are they doing? I am telling you right now, a line has been drawn in the sand. I am not aging. Another day for the rest of my life. It's Mark Jackson. What he said. The great
your
ones
body-
say, you tell your body not today. I'm telling you, the first NFL Sunday where I have everybody at my house, we're setting up a Brotox station. An IV and a Brotox station. We're leaving that NFL Sunday for the first time in recorded history better than we walking out than we did when we walked in. I'm done with aging. Done with it.
Kylie and Kendall, they're big proponents of that.
Oh, screw them.
Yeah.
Screw them.
They're always IVing.
I hate it. It seems as though the cure for all of this is just money, Dan. I got to either find money or find a way to operate within the margins. And sometimes it means taking a Metamucil bath.
I mean, how about like a good night's sleep and a steady diet?
I've been supplementing the sleep.
Dan wants to get back.
I am not going to slow down just because of age. I want to do all the same fun things that I did at 20. And I hate that I have little things like time, my body, and a daughter trying to hold me up.
Yeah.
I'm fun. I'm great to have at parties. I really am. I will supplement your night. I am a good friend. I got a head of hair that people would kill for.
Only me.
You're a fabulous driver.
I am a great driver, and I recently stopped texting while doing so.
I've got multiple questions, but I suppose we'll start we will.
And I made $300 on the Ottawa Red Blacks over the weekend. I had a very positive weekend in the CFL.
The Cup, the Flanagan's Cup. This is a regional thing, and I believe it to be the greatest cup in Florida and in the history of Florida, and I'm including in there bejeweled chalices and treasures that have been found off the Keys. I'm saying that that cup, for whatever the reason is that you're pouring that concoction of sludge into, is the best of the cups.
It's our state cup, for sure.
It is the Florida Holy Grail, Dan.
If we're watching Indiana Jones, he goes into that treasure trove, and he's looking for the Holy Grail. If there happened to be a green or pink Flanagan's Cup next to it, I would have taken my chances.
I've never seen the pink Flanagan's Cup.
Oh, during breast cancer awareness month. Yeah. Sometimes you get that. Like, it's every home has their green to pink margin. You should be at 17-2 if you're charting at home. That should be the green to pink ratio.
I don't know how you're doing that or why you're knowing that or why it is that you know to share that with the audience. I do need to get back, though. Your vacation, I am imagining something, a machine. I don't know what those machines are called where like 7 dominoes fall and then a shovel falls down and a ping pong ball rolls. Those machines have a name. You're saying that after your week of vacation that was that machine, Chris Cody, what it dispersed was a single rabbit pellet of shit?
But I didn't. I was expecting more. I got up and I was like, "This is a good one. I'm gonna look that because everyone looks, right? You look.
Yeah. You always have to look.
You look. Yeah. And I looked and I was like, "Wow, 2 little sad pebbles. All that work."
You're in a safe space. I'm here for you. I've been there. No more. No more. We're telling our bodies not today.
Jessica agrees.
Just leave me out of this.